Good morning. Will the Committee on Planning, Infrastructure, and Transportation please come to order? I would like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Okimoto and Committee members Dos Santos-Tam, Topola, and Wire. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda through two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 14, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 1-13 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for that testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their name, and each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who are registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. For those who are joining us by telephone only, I will identify you by your last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. I will then give persons those who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom to be called upon. I think it's *9 or *8 to raise your hand via phone. Some friendly reminders and tips: please video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you're also watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers, and pursuant to HR Section 92-3.7, it requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by a roll call vote unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside of the council chamber, well, if there are any, I will make this prompt then. But yes, written testimonies will include a testifier's address, email address, and phone number, and they will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. And as a courtesy, please silence or turn off all cell phones. Thank you, members. Thank you for your patience. I do want to thank our staff for making sure that we are able to be heard out into the world, outputting it all. So we are now moving forward to agenda item number 1. We have Bill 61, 2024. This bill relates to wheelies. It is in its first pass through to our committee. But before I move forward, I wanted to see if my co-introducer, our Council Vice Chair Wire, has anything to add before we call up the director.
Mahalo, Chair. I was gonna be putting forward for Chair's consideration and committee's consideration oral amendments to the version of the bill, and I can go over those now if that's ideal.
Okay.
Okay. So it would be amending the definition of electric bike to read a bicycle equipped with a motor. It would be amending the definition of moped to strike portions following the HRS section, so striking the portion that says and includes an electric bicycle, and then adding a definition of motorcycle to be has the same meaning as defined in HRS section 291C-1, and then amending the definition of wheelie from the list of devices, changing riding on a moped or motorcycle to riding on an electric bicycle, moped, or motorcycle. And this would just be to conform with insight that was provided to the committee by Department of Corporation Counsel. And also open to, if we wanted to amend the initial portion, taking the 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs from Bill 52. It was just outlaying the data as it relates to increased accidents and impacts from electric bicycles those four paragraphs, inserting them in between the current Section 1 and Section 2 on Bill 61. Just acknowledging, similar to Bill 52, the emergency situation that we're in with the increased accidents. I just saw another wheelie right in front of me the other day with a kid that was well below 16 or 15, actually. So just throwing that out for the committee to consider.
Thank you very much, Council Vice Chair Wire. Are there? I do want to open it up for discussion before we move to the department. If there's any discussion by the members, no. Okay, that does make that in alignment with the most recent Bill 52 that was passed out of council last week. So I will now move forward to the city administration. We have our director designate from Department of Transportation Services. We have Director Martin.
Good morning, Councilmember Cordero, Vice Chair Okimoto, members of the committee, and members of the council. My name is Roger Morton. I'm Director Designate of the Department of Transportation Services. The department is strongly in favor of pedestrian safety. We literally just had a little caucus here looking at the hand carry changes. They're in accord with our recommendations in the past. We also looked at previously at state law and found that there was a section that allowed counties to have temporary regulations for emergency or special conditions. We think that the proliferation of these bikes does constitute a special situation, so there's some relief in that area too. I would also say that there are something like 10 bills in the legislature right now that are discussing definitions and regulations of e-bikes in one form or another. We welcome those state efforts as well, and we're going to monitor those state efforts as we go forward. But the department supports the bill at this point.
Thank you, Director Martin. Members, are there any questions? Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam.
Thanks, Director, and I completely agree, and I appreciate your advocacy on this issue out in the public as well as across the street on the various bills that are moving forward. With the proposed new language, just to clarify, this would only prohibit wheelies on electric bicycles, mopeds, and motorcycles, and so a traditional bicycle that we think of as a traditional bicycle would still, kids could still do these sorts of things in a park or a reasonably safe setting.
Yes, that's my understanding.
But in your experience in working, in this field, the really problematic behavior is with these motorized devices, right? The kids aren't cracking their heads open on traditional bikes doing wheelies.
I think that's the change that we've seen, on the street has been that the proliferation of these motorized devices have created unsafe behaviors on the street, and that's certainly been the department's direction has been to target the motorized versions of the bicycles on a street, on a public street. There's really no use. There's no purpose for doing a wheelie, even on a bicycle. Kids can be kids in parks and those kind of things, and we're not really out to. But our focus has been on the motorized versions of these, where we think that there is a special problem.
Thank you very much for that question and clarification. Both Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam and Director Morton. Members, are there any other questions? No, okay, Councilmember Chipola.
Aloha, Chair. When the time is appropriate, can I have a question for Corp Counsel? Thank you.
Absolutely. Members, do we have any other questions for Department of Transportation Services? Okay, and also, we understand that you said if it warrants for special occasions, or not occasions, but special occurrences, such as the proliferation of these modes of two-wheeled vehicles. But I was just wondering, in the event, not wondering with you at the department, but with all the members, in the event that does occur, I think it's an opportunity for us to discuss further as it relates to bicycles, because I know that for enforcement reasons, I know that a few of my district team members will see that it is difficult to see like wait, what is motorized and what isn't sometimes, but it's speeding downhill especially. So that can be discussed maybe further down the line. But yeah, just saying that we meet year round and we can take this up later. Okay, moving forward, I will now, thank you, take up testimony. We will now proceed with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. We will now proceed with in-person testimony. Clerks, do we have any person? Seeing none. Is there anyone else online or in person who wishes to testify? I see Donald Sakamoto with his hand raised.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Donald Sakamoto, longtime person that used public transportation. I'm in favor as a blind individual to have this bill passed. Very dangerous with these kind of vehicles, especially for the blind and disabled. So I fully support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sakamoto. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none. Okay, we are now closing testimony. We would now like to call up the Department of Corporation Counsel. And with that, I would like to give the floor back to Councilmember Tupola for her question.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Okay. Good morning, Brian Anchetta, Deputy Corporation Counsel.
Aloha, Mr. Anchetta. Thank you for being here. My brief question in regards to the proposed verbal amendments was whether or not it was, I think Director kind of alluded to there being a caveat in the HRS that allows for us to propose regulation of mopeds and motorcycles if there's an emergency. So that's the first one I'd like you to address. The second one I wanted to bring up was if with the verbal amendments, if it evened out your concern regarding the definition of moped different from the state code. And lastly, just your suggestion regarding the definition of motorcycle. I think Councilmember Wire got everything else. I just wanted to make sure that you heard and that you can tell us that those ones were resolved as well.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Tupola. With regard to your first question, electric bicycle, I think your question was whether or not this fix pretty much like resolves the problem. There is, or actually, was your first question with regard to the temporary and experimental regulations?
That's
Sorry,
the one.
Not write that down. That is under HRS 291C-163A22, which says that this chapter, the statewide traffic code, shall not be deemed to prevent counties with respect to streets and highways under their jurisdiction from adopting and enforcing temporary or experimental regulations as may be necessary to cover emergencies or special conditions. So with regard to that, as was mentioned, Bill 52 kind of lays out the data with regard to like incidents involving various classes of vehicles. So if you were to include such language within Bill 61 to show to any reasonable reader that, okay, hey, you know, we got some issues with regard to like wheelies with mopeds and motorcycles, then I believe that would cover things. There isn't much precedent under case law or anything like that, but that would be addressed. Second, with regard to moped, the change to remove electric bicycle from the definition of moped basically makes the city definition match the statewide traffic code definition. So that resolves that problem. And lastly, with regard to the new definition of motorcycle, it's being equated to the statewide traffic code definition of motorcycle. So there's no conflict there since they're one and the same.
Okay, that sounds good. I think by including that previous verbiage from Bill 52, that was going to resolve the first one in regards to us doing it on an emergency needed basis. But just wanted to make sure everything was cleaned out, and we appreciate you giving us such thorough review of the bill. And thank you to the introducers. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Councilmember Tupola. Members, are there any other questions for Mr. Anchetta from the Department of Corporation Counsel? Oh, okay. Oh, anything else for Corporation Counsel? Thank you very much. Okay, so next, we are still in discussion. We would like to call back up Director Morton from the Department of Transportation Services. With that, I would like to kick it back over to our Council Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And just want to say mahalo to Corporation Council and Cheta as well for the analysis. That was very helpful. And Director, just simply, I wanted to just throw out that maybe in the conversations that you're having with the legislature as well, do we think it's feasible or possible for them to be more explicit in their amendments to the traffic code to allow the county to have broader authority to, of course, typically we're not going to go below, right? They're going to set the foundation, but then have enhanced regulations. Just having that authority more clearly laid out. And I know, for example, that has showed up in other regulatory frameworks at the state. And so, yeah, welcome your thoughts, or if there seems to be any appetite across the street for that.
I can't say to the appetite across the street, but I can say that, there have been a number of bills. Frankly, we haven't fully reviewed all of the bills yet, but I'll take your suggestion and examine them in the light of whether or not the county, whether each of the counties could be, have additional regulations that would be not less stringent, but perhaps more stringent. I think that's the general rule, and I think that's a good idea. We'll research that at the department level, but there's been a fury of them, and we're frankly having an issue just trying to research what each of the many bills do, and trying to figure out which ones are going to be supported by the majority at the legislature, and which ones are probably just filed and will be filed. That's kind of where we're at right now. So we'll be working with the city's legislative tracking people and just trying to narrow down as to which bills and which ideas are going forward in the legislature.
Okay, appreciate that. So just an idea for testimony, and happy to throw out testimony in our individual capacity as well. So if there's ever a need, please do let us know.
Yeah.
Of course, once a ledge converts to full-time, we won't have to worry about it as much because all year round, I know they're talking about that. But until then, once they're done legislating, I think the case is just that, we're happy to still retain the power to respond to emergencies. Even though it's explicit in terms of being an emergency in the statute, I think just having a broader allowance would simplify things. So appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, members. Do we have any other questions for the Department of Transportation Services? Okay, seeing none. Okay, well, thank you, members. I know that a lot of, majority of the members of the council, if not all of us, have had grave concerns from our neighbors about these stunts on these motorized bicycles or motorcycles or mopeds. So we appreciate your efforts in discussing it with your community. And so I'm really excited to be able to hopefully pass this out, continue to move this forward, and so that we can see that our counties lead as we wait for the state. Okay. With that, I don't know if anyone needs Council Vice Chair Wire to restate those amendments, but I think we were able to reiterate that through the Department of Corporation Counsel. And okay, thank you. With that, I would like to, let's see, where am I? The chair recommends that Bill 61, 2024 be amended to a CD1 as we have discussed to what Council Vice Chair Wire has stated verbally. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the bill has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 61, 2024 CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay. Moving to agenda item number 2, we have Bill 50, 2024. This bill relates to parades, street festivals, and other activities. Members, we have posted to the agenda CD1 of the version of the CD1 version of the bill that was approved by the former Committee on Transportation at its November 19, 2024 meeting. under OCS 2024-0996/11/14/2024 to 27 p.m. We also have a proposed CD1 version submitted by Council Chair Waters, OCS 2025-00221/1/8/2025 at 3:31 p.m. For your information, summaries of the amendments are listed on the agenda. I will defer to Council Chair Waters to further explain his CD1.
Thank you so much. As you mentioned, the Transportation Committee on November 19, 2024 passed out a CD1, and those amendments are located on pages 2 through 6 of the summary of proposed committee draft. However, since then, Corp Council weighed in and are making these 3 suggestions, clarifying the definition of agency, First Amendment street activity, and the word street. Note that the new definition of the First Amendment street activity recognizes the applicability of the U.S. Constitution to such events, but is not intended to limit or expand the range of events that are covered. But appreciate you having this hearing today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Council Chair Waters. I feel like you've been talking about this bill a lot in many, many different hearings. So this is great to see that we have the further amendments. Members, do we have any discussion on what was discussed as further amendments? Okay, seeing none, we will now move to the City Administration. We have Director Morton with us from the City's Department of Transportation Services.
Good morning again, Roger Morton, Director Designate, Department of Transportation Services. I confess, my staff has seen the latest draft. I did not. I have the one that's older, but I've had a discussion. We concur with the changes that this bill was really directed to for a really targeted issue of too many festivals going on Kalakaua in Waikiki. It accomplishes that, and we support the bill.
Thank you very much for your support of the bill and amendments. Members, do you have any questions for the director? Seeing none, thank you very much, Director. We will now proceed with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have one standing by.
Okay, oh wait, one moment. Okay, yes. Please proceed. Please state your name for the record.
Aloha, Chair and members of this committee. My name is Greg Nasakian. I'm here today speaking as an individual, but I do serve on the Waikiki Neighborhood Board. And you have to excuse me, we had a board meeting last night and I have not even had a cup of coffee yet. I've been testifying earlier at the state legislature. I do support the intent of what this bill is trying to do, but I do not support this bill as currently drafted. My concerns are that the intent of originally what was stated was to, try to reduce and limit. And I live right off of Kalakaua, so I do understand the number of events that are there. So it was trying to limit the number of events so it wouldn't be as disruptive. But other elements of this need to be addressed, and those elements are first responders being able to access the street. So I've met with Trevor Abarzua, from the Waikiki Business Improvement District, and I'd like you to please consider some additional amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none. Okay. Are there any other remote testifiers online?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. Seeing none, we will now proceed with in-person testimony. I don't have any registered in-person testifiers. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Seeing none, we will now close testimony. Members, we are back in discussion. Council Chair Waters.
Thank you so much for having this hearing today. As you mentioned, we've been working on this for quite a long time. Thank you to the Department of Transportation Services for initially inspiring this bill, as well as Corp Council for their hard work. As you mentioned, we've been working on this for a long time. I also want to thank Greg from the Waikiki Neighborhood Board, as well as others on the neighborhood board who participated and are taking this very seriously. I'd like to thank the Waikiki Neighborhood Board who actually passed a resolution in support of Bill 50 CD1. Um, this has been a long time coming, and I think it's going to provide a lot of relief to the residents and the businesses in Waikiki. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Council Chair. And yes, thank you to especially the members of the Waikiki Neighborhood Board who would oftentimes come to the last few hearings. I also watched some of their meetings, especially when they passed out the resolution in support of this bill and efforts. So thank you. So members, we're back in discussion. I think we have Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for taking this bill up now that your committee has purview over it. This bill has been discussed for a long time. I mean, this is not the first iteration of some bill to regulate parades in Waikiki, but what I think is really different here is this recognition that other neighborhoods also want these activities. Certainly for downtown and Chinatown, we just had the Chinese New Year parade with the passage of the malls bill, and hopefully we can have more activities. And with regard to the CD1 that's before us, that builds upon our previous CD1, I want to thank Chair Waters for his work on this to really get it to the final product that we have before us. So I'm looking forward to this. For anyone who has an activity in Waikiki that wants to bring a small activity in Waikiki, not Spam Jam or anything big like that, but for anyone that has a smaller event, please do look at other areas and really activating these places, because people all throughout the island want to participate in activities and want access and all of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam, and as the former Chair of Transportation Committee, thank you very much for having all these discussions, especially those difficult discussions with the community here before us here. But also a plug, I personally love spam, and that's the way to my heart. So if you want a spam jam in Kalihi or Tuaea, let me know. Just kidding. Okay, let's see here. The chair recommends that Bill 50, 2024 be amended to this posted CD1 identified as OCS 2025 0021 /1/8 /2025 at 3:31 p.m. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the bill has been amended to the CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 50, 2024 CD1 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Nice. Moving forward to agenda item number 3, we are at Bill 6, 2025. This bill relates to structures and members. We have a distributed hand-carried CD1 version of the bill at OCS 2025 -0132 /2 /11 at 1:42 p.m. It is submitted by myself, and the proposed CD1 makes the following amendments. In Section A, it amends Section 5 to clarify that the structures to be regulated are curbside tellers, freight elevators, and freight chutes, which are also subject to additional provisions of subsection 13-8.4 and 13-8.5. And B, amends Section 10 to add language to direct the reviser of ordinances to update the reporting requirements table and the revised ordinances of Honolulu 2021 to reflect the reporting requirement amended by Section 5 of the bill, and renumbers the subsequent section accordingly. And C, makes miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. Okay. And I will now defer to the introducer of the bill. We have Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam.
Thank you, Chair. This is sort of yet another housekeeping bill. As we know, the public telephone structures are fairly obsolete. I don't think there's a single one that works here on the island. Many of them are still out there, though. There's one down the street on Punch Bowl that's just the target of a lot of graffiti. But what I think this discussion is going to start is further down the line, there probably will be a need to regulate future structures. And I want to make sure that this section of ROH is cleaned up so it's ready for that. For example, further down the line, we may have curbside EV chargers. We may have things like Amazon lockers, or there may be new technologies that require, little Wi-Fi antennas or other things in the public sidewalks and spaces. And so when that comes, we'll obviously take up regulation of those types of structures. But for now, we want to clean this up and make sure that our modern ordinances reflect our modern city.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam, for introducing the bill. And members, are there any discussion on both the bill itself as well as my proposed amendments? Council Vice Chair Wire.
No, support the amendments and the bill. But just, I wanted to say mahalo to Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam because I know he's been investing a lot of time in cleaning up our ordinances and streamlining it. And I think a lot of folks wouldn't necessarily find that a fun task. So appreciate him being willing to do that and spend the time and the effort to go through and really ensure that, we're staying up to date with modern times. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other further discussion? Okay, moving forward, we will now move to the city administration. Is it really? It is, so I have listed here our director designate, Director Kawano from Department of Budget and Fiscal Services.
Good morning, Committee on Planning and Infrastructure and Transportation Chair, Honorable Council members. On behalf of the administration, we support Bill 6. We think that review of ordinance and the repeal of various ordinances that are obsolete is good. It's a good thing to do. It's positive. We do have a comment for consideration. And the comment is that, and along the lines of what Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam mentioned, if possible, we would appreciate more of a definition of what structures are, because right now it's kind of broad. And when we talk about structures on ground and underground, it could be a number of things, including easements, culverts, and things like that that actually go across property that is owned by the city. So more clearly defined structure documentation in the proposed measure would be appreciated. That's all we have, and look forward to answer any questions, if any.
Thank you. Director Kawano, I know that Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam was talking about having this section prepared for any further structures that may be needed for removal in the future. So I know that you mentioned further definition of what a structure is. So I don't know if any other members have any comments about that moving forward. Okay, I'm gonna go with Council Vice Chair Wire and then Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam.
I just had a question, maybe a BFS, if that's appropriate, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So as written, are you saying that BFS would be tasked with permitting of activities they're currently not tasked with permitting, or is that an overstatement?
Well, I think what we'd like to know, from BFS's perspective, what we're actually talking about permitting first. And obviously, we would work with other agencies and determine where the administration of permitting would fit best. But in general, we're thinking that the clarification of what needs to be monitored, administered, permitted is a good thing to do. And I think once we have more clarity, we can determine which agency should be in charge of the permitting process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mahalo.
Councilmember De Santos-Tam.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments. I think just for everyone's edification, I think the concern is in section 4 in 13.8.1. It sort of lists curbside teller, freight elevator, freight chute, or any other structure, and I guess that's kind of what it gets to. I think, and so I appreciate the BFS director designate's comments about this. Obviously, we don't need to be regulating every single structure that goes up, but I think in a future CD, we can probably look at how to really narrowly tailor that down because we don't need BFS certifying every easement or every drainage line that's perhaps raised and thus is a structure.
Thank you. Members, any other discussion on this matter? Okay, we can come back to discussion after we do testimony. Thank you, Director. Okay. We will now proceed with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we will now proceed with in-person testimony. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, moving forward. Members, we're back in discussion. One moment. Okay, thank you, members. Director Kawano, I was wondering if you happen to see my hand-carried CD1?
Andy Kawano, Director Designate Budget and Fiscal Services, Committee Chair. I have not read it yet. Yeah.
Okay, so for the section 5, to clarify that structures to be regulated are curbside tellers, freight elevators, and freight chutes, which are also subject to additional provisions of subsection 13-8.4 and 13-8.5. And then, of course, adding those to the table as it relates to the reporting requirements table as well. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, in terms of researching telephone booths and so on with regard to the original bill, I saw freight elevators and freight chutes, and we really don't have anything to do with it, from BFS's standpoint at this time. And we were checking around the city, talking to agencies, and I'm not aware of any agency permitting, monitoring, permitting freight elevators and freight chutes. But what Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam mentioned with regard to charge stations and things like that, the structures we're going to put up in the future, I thought that made total sense. So, but I appreciate these changes. I think we're going to have to do more research to figure out how it, fits into our realm of operation.
Okay, thank you for your comments. So this is the first pass in committee. It will come back to committee twice more. So we look forward to having that discussion further. Okay, thank you. Members, any other discussions? Okay, anything? You sure? Okay, all right. If there's no further discussion, the chair recommends that Bill 6/2025 be amended to the hand-carried CD1 at OCS 2025-0132/2/11/2025 at 1:42 p.m. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the bill has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 6/2025 CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Seeing none, so ordered. Moving forward to agenda item number 4, Bill 1, 2025, which relates to public spaces. Members, we have posted to the agenda proposed CD1 of the bill at OCS 2025-0080/2/5/2025 at 2:47 p.m. submitted by Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. And if he wants to, Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam, nope, the CD1 is on the agenda. Okay, with that, we have from our city administration, we have Deputy Director John Uchi from the Department of Transportation Services.
A lot of practice. Aloha, good morning, Chair and Committee. Testifying on Bill 1, first of all, I want to thank the Council for taking this very necessary and progressive move forward with relating to public places. A little bit of history: the outdoor dining that we see in our city right now was the genesis of that happened during the pandemic, and we have to kind of rewind in our minds the kind of what was going on in the world at that time. So we actually had remember we had social distancing at the time, which actually was really detrimental to small restaurants and small businesses because they may have had 6 tables in a very small space but could not seat everyone close to each other. So the beginning of this sidewalk dining actually started as we could actually just register participants to participate in this program, and we wanted to make the bar of entry very reasonable for the businesses because they were going through so many things at the time. And so with the council's help, we graduated this into an official pilot, and now it takes an additional step there to actually graduate it into a regular program of the city. So with that in mind, we're very supportive of even some of the other bills that were introduced that are all really well timed together. The advent of turning over permitting control to DTS for the downtown malls. Also, this becomes a great opportunity for economic development and the ability to have more outdoor dining along places like 4th Street Mall or on the Riverwalk adjacent to the Chinatown Cultural Plaza. So it's all very timely and it's all very well coordinated. I think if we had any comments on this bill, it would be related to Section F. As it becomes a part of the regular city program, we can see how and be supportive of, in a pilot, it is really good to gather regular data. We will be amassing data if we move forward with this as a regular part of the city program, and we would just ask for some consideration that potentially we would be forgiven of the ability to have to produce a report every year. But that being said, we're always willing to come back and present it on a status in front of the council or in front of committee to do that.
Members, any questions for Deputy Director Nochi? Okay, sorry, Councilmember Okimoto. Committee Vice Chair Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Deputy Director Designee Nouchi. So you just mentioned I guess the department's concerns with this measure or this item F. So what will be your thoughts? If you want us to remove this, and how often, what would be the reporting process to us on how effective this program is running?
We would definitely gather the number of permits and things like that. It's just we all know how quickly a year turns around, and I don't want us to look forward and maybe not have or be scrambling to produce a report. But that being said, I think we're always available to come back if the council has any questions about the efficacy or any issue going on with the sidewalk dining. And the reason why we say that is, as we aimed earlier, we wanted to make it very easy for merchants to do outdoor dining. And we implemented that with a quick hui up between DPP, DTS, DFM, DPR, and OER. And we did not find that there was a lot to regulate, nor was there a lot of issues in compliance or anything like that. So I think our main concern was just we'd like to be able to get the word out and make sure that we have a really healthy ecosystem of outdoor dining in the city.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say I think there's still value in having some form of report. I understand the years. I mean, we're back here in February already, so I understand how quickly time passes by. But I do still think that there's value in having some kind of measurement and benchmark as Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam has put into this or has left in the ordinance. So that's just, if there's any way where we could keep it in, if it's not annually, would you be willing to biannually or something? There's some kind of measurement. I think there's still value to that.
And we definitely appreciate that. I mean, measurement is the mark of success. And yes, perhaps if it was not annually, but on a longer time frame, that would be helpful too.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the suggestion. I'm certainly open to not a year, but every 2 years or 3 years or whatever the case may be. Either we can do it now or when this comes back to committee. But yeah, I appreciate the department's support of this. And by the way, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I actually feel exactly a day over 50.
Yes, happy birthday. I was waiting till the end. It's okay. First off, though, Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam's proposal, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam, you keep the reporting in for every year, correct? Okay. And I was wondering then, for the different reports that we get annual reports from every single department, and especially when it comes to those metrics in the budget book. So maybe would that suffice as annual reporting for the members? If that can be something designated under the division under DTS that would report on this?
We can do that. In the bill, though, it does say that the mayor can designate what
Yeah.
department that lands in. So I would probably answer that.
Oh,
Yes, whatever department gets designated this can include that in their book, or DTS can also do that because the actual permits will come through our street uses office, I believe, as we're set up right now.
That's a fair point. I jumped the gun there. Okay, so we're going to keep that in. This is the first pass in my committee that's going to be coming through. We can discuss that further because I think there is a way for it to be reported and for us to refer to it in a public document, which is what I just stated earlier. So we'll look at that further. Members, any discussion or thoughts on that? Council Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question for DTS in terms of the thoughts. I'll defer to Budget Chair and the introducer of the measure in terms of amendments, but just wanted to make sure, Deputy Director, I was understanding. Because I kind of caught most of what was said earlier. So are you saying that at this point you've reviewed, there's really not a compliance issue, there's not really need to revisit the program itself? Or in terms of it just being, acceptable and good practice to set up the permitting, the programming, and all of that?
Yes, actually, we've been pretty pleasantly surprised at how well compliant the merchants have been, and I think they actually prize this as an opportunity. Maybe we can touch in and get some statistics for as this bill moves forward, but we have heard very positive things from the restaurants that are taking advantage of this program, and the economic benefit to them has just been great. And I believe everybody's been very careful to not, pardon my language, but not to mess it up, because it was a really easy way to expand their storefront, expand their presence. And I think everybody's been a really good actor, good participant, and perhaps we can have some of them come and talk about that in a future hearing.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. I'm open, of course. I'll defer. I was just mainly wondering, if businesses are looking for long-term planning or even short-term planning, and it seems like it's working, and you want to just be able to get accurate info out, and knowing that, you could easily pull permits and show us the numbers at any point. I think what you're suggesting is fairly reasonable. So Just want to make sure I was understanding. Thank
And
you,
if
Chair.
it gives you any further confidence too, when we had this very early pilot program, it was simply going into a Google Doc and just expressing intent and saying you would comply with the rules that we set forward. Then when the council officialized this as a pilot, it gave them further confidence that they weren't going to invest in outdoor dining infrastructure only to have the program go away. And so this is probably one more step of confidence for them to actually look at how they might harden and have, better things going on that actually make it look less portable,
Mm.
but just a more regular part of their business and their economy.
Okay, appreciate that. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. Council Chair Goddard.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
Did you say you're 50 years old?
Yeah, and one day.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just wearing lei from yesterday because it smelled good and makes you feel good.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Hey, I really want to thank you for all yours and your department's work on outdoor dining. Um, I agree with you. Measurement is a mark of success, but also, you know, don't think of the reporting requirement as a burden. Let's think of it as a time to celebrate the good work that you're doing because we want to hear about it. We want to hear about all the different neighborhoods who took advantage of this and the different restaurants. And it's a way to actually, support the restaurants. But it also is a tool that we can use to encourage other neighborhoods. I know you and I talked about maybe doing something like this on 12th Avenue, coupled with Bill 50 and the mall bill that Tyler the Santos-Tam introduced. But we want to hear about it. So yeah, please. At this point, I'm suggesting keeping the language as is, as you recommended, Chair Cordero. But we could play with that a little bit to see if it makes it less onerous on the department. But we do want to hear about it, So thank you.
Absolutely, we understand that. I mean, celebrating successes of programs is a very, it's uplifting to others, and it does engender more people to get on board and try to do the same. So we can understand the value in that.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, I do have a question, Deputy Director. So I know that we are now taking this up as an official program, but also there were concerns in the past administration about setting up outdoor dining, and I was just trying to figure out if it laid within like how we were permitting the actual, I guess, businesses and also how to enforce. So I was wondering how that would look in the future.
I think we do still need to look at the structure of the departments given the city charter and understanding where those different powers lie within the various departments. But we do have a cadre of all the people that touch this program from DTS to DPP to DFM to parks to OER actually here right now. But that is something that we do need to discuss moving forward about enforcement and what our bar is actually to permit this to happen on the sidewalks. I think one of one of the standards we want to enforce is definitely ADA accessibility, and looking forward to if we have other modifications to baseline ADA levels such as ProWAG. It's a new standard for sidewalk widths and openings that we would need to take into account as we move forward.
Okay, understood. And then for in the current ordinance, when it says that furniture must not be placed over planter strips and tree wells, and that's currently an ordinance right now. And does that mean just city planter strips and tree wells, or just in general?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. Where furniture must not be placed over planter strips and tree wells, is that in general, even if it's over private planter strips and tree wells, or is it just city property planter strips and tree wells?
I believe our jurisdiction would be in the city-owned properties over the city infrastructure, but we do have DPP, for example, might have some say over front yard usage and other street elements in the furniture zone.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Let's say if I was walking down the street and let's say for North King Street and we're starting to put more trees up on North King. And if it were to be right over one of the tree wells, like let's say a table, and it's on private property, I definitely think that they would get a notice of violation.
We can definitely work with DPP to work those details out. But as the bill is written right now, we don't anticipate there to be any hurdles that we wouldn't be able to overcome with that. Again, we would want to use accessibility as our first pass. Is it accessible? Can people using not just basic ADA accessibility, but is it reasonable for someone using a mobility aid to encounter the sidewalk, and just so that there's no obstructions to anybody's throughput?
Okay, because I do want to bring up that me and Councilmember de Santos-Tam went to get a meal or just pick up a meal, and we're talked to about possible violations because of proximity to tree wells in an area. I don't want to mention any establishment or anything, but I do want to bring that up where violations do occur, even if on private property. So I guess I do see the Deputy Director of DPP here as well, who can probably answer that.
Yeah, and we would definitely work with DPP and the council to work out these, especially if you have a very specific one. We can talk offline and maybe help to work that out.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for the DTS Deputy Director before, I guess, the DPP Deputy Director responds? Okay, thank you. Thank you, and happy birthday.
Good morning, Council. Deputy Director Brian Gallagher from DPP. Just following up with some of your questions during this meeting. Getting back to, I think in the application for this outdoor dining, it has to be it's on a yearly renewal. So we will be evaluating, because DPP is the piece that we will go out, we will be checking the restaurants, making sure they're set up where they need to be. And then we can be recording if they have any notice of violations and any issues like that. In the application for that to be approved to it, which goes to DTS, who's, it all goes under complete streets and the usage and ADA, and it has to be within their guidelines and jurisdictions. It says they have to use their outdoor property first before they can use city property. But we'll check that line and we'll see in like what you're saying as far as NOVs go. But yeah, it is a yearly application. They got to resubmit, and if we have issues with them, probably likely as the department and working with DTS, we may be denying applications depending on the usage, but we want to be helpful and supportive of this program. So anything we can do to keep it going, because it's a great economic benefit. Maybe we can work with the Office of Economic Revitalization, OER, to help track some of this information and documentation, see how successful it is. But yeah, we can work with you on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. And the annual renewal will also help with the annual reporting too, since you'll have that data anyway. Okay, so Council Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I just wanted to flesh it out then. So regarding an assessment of the program, including identification of the criteria used and the impact of the program on the local economy, who do you think would be best positioned for that? I'll direct that to DPP, but Deputy Director can also jump in as well. Did you need me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
No worries at all. I know you have a lot on your plate.
I'm talking to John.
So just looking at the reporting requirement, right? So an assessment of the program, including identification of the criteria used and the impact of the program on the local economy. Who would be best positioned to report on that? Would that be DPP?
That'd be OER.
OER, okay.
Yeah. But they can get statistics and numbers from, we would be working with them as DPP, and we as a collective effort, we could help create some kind of report.
Number two, an analysis of the method of implementation of the program, the cost of the program, and the number of permits issued. Maybe partially DTS if they're issuing the permits, or would that be DPP?
On the actual form, it is approved by the Director of Transportation Services, but all the records and retention, I believe, are housed, I think, in both departments, but I think essentially that would be, I think, within DPP.
Okay, so when you say housed within both departments, DTS and DPP.
Correct.
Okay, and then recommendations for retention, termination, or modification would be a collective decision, you think, or?
It would be collective, correct, depending on usage and because DTS and DFM have jurisdiction over those properties and so as things evolve, we may need to make revisions, but we could collectively work on that and provide a concise report.
Okay.
And then DPP could pull that together.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I'll throw out if DTS or OER wanted to add anything they can, but if you're good, no need. I just wanted to get some clarification, so.
Yeah, we're
appreciate-
definitely going to need OER's support in the outreach to the businesses and find out what was happening with their business as far as their economic viability and how positive it is.
Okay, appreciate that. So I guess hopefully that means we'll be assuming that they're fully funded in terms of their positions with general funds, but we'll see. Okay, mahalo, Chair.
That's a
Never guaranteed.
good point. Thank you.
Never guaranteed. Okay. Moving forward, I do want to kick it over to Councilmember Dos Santos-Tam. Do you have any questions for any of the agencies? No? Okay. I do have a question, actually, for any of them, for any of the departments. So this is a lot of different moving pieces and different parts. And if I just go back to the time when me and the council vice chair were staff, and we had Henry from Environmental Services Department being the main sole person to do education, do tracking for implementing the first reiteration of the plastic bag bans, as well as then the utensils, and everything kind of just stayed within E&V. And a lot of the discussion that we've been having this week, well, it was just yesterday, has been about efficiency of government. And this is just very confusing to me. So I'm just sharing. And I get that, maybe one department has the ability to receive funding or process the funding, whatever it may be. But it's very confusing. It's going to be confusing to the businesses who are going to have to reach out, and if there's this issue and they have like a multitude of issues, they're going to be then fielded to like 5 different departments. So, moving forward, this is policy, but moving forward, we hope that when it does become a designated by the mayor, I really hope, I can only speak for myself, that we are able to consolidate it and make it efficient. I don't know if anyone wants to add any other comments. Councilmember Okimoto.
I just wanted to say I agree. So thank you. I agree with what you're
Thank
saying.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, Deputy Director Gallagher.
Yeah, if there's any complaints from the public or there's any issues, it says to contact DPP, and then we can route accordingly amongst the different departments to consolidate a report or answers or things like that. So I hope that answers the question. As far as housing
does
it,
help.
like a lot of our functions in the city, it's across multiple departments for all kinds of various issues. This is just one more things where we work together amongst the various departments. But I understand the concern about trying to one cohesive piece, and right now that's any issues, concerns, that goes to DPP.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay. Moving forward, we will now proceed with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, seeing no further remote testifiers, we will now proceed with in-person testimony. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are back in discussion. This is the first, once again, pass through committee, and I would like to have public hearing on it and have it come back to committee. Okay, the chair recommends that Bill 1, 2025 be amended to the posted CD1, OCS 2025-0080/2/5/2025 at 2:47 p.m. Any discussion? Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the bill has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 1, 2025 CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion? Okay, well, I guess for discussion, I do want to ask that when we come to after council and public hearing, maybe if we all speak to our neighborhood boards and talk about, I don't want to say concerns, but things that people have questions about for outdoor dining, especially like either leaving the actual structures out, because sometimes people would want to just secure it with, I guess, I don't know, bungee cords and near to their physical structure itself. So if you have anything that you have any questions about, I know that some of my neighbors in Kalihi did have some questions. So I hope we can discuss that when it comes to committee, back to committee. Okay? Okay. Objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward, we have agenda item number 5. Thank you to the departments. Okay, so this resolution. Oh well, first off, for discussion, we have the following items. We have Resolution 25-10, Resolution 25-14, and Resolution 25-20. Before I preface, I did confirm with my voting committee members that I did want to have discussion items to meet and highlight, and I guess like Council Chair Waters talked about, celebrate the departments, and this is a really great time to do so. I know that a lot of changes have been made through the city administration, but we are so glad to. I'm really glad because I feel like I have a great relationship with these 3 directors as it is, and I would like for the rest of our not just committee and council, but the rest of our community to hear about what those departments do, because they oftentimes are hearing that we are either waiting for those responses or it's under the purview of that department. I do also want to note that while we do have great working relationships with these directors and departments, that like we interface with the public frequently, and we as a city have to represent, we have to represent the public's concerns as well as provide that same output back to them. And with that, I felt that having discussion is necessary because we operate publicly, and we can't keep these conversations close to the chest. We need our community to understand what every single department does, the efforts that each of the directors wants to put forward, and I have every intent to want to see these directors continue to move on for the next 4 years to work with us. So I do want to note that although it's not for action, that is for discussion only, that this is where I wanted to take the time. So I do want to thank the committee voting members for your indulgence and agreeing to take up the directors in this manner. So with that, we have Resolution 25-10. This resolution confirms the nomination of Dominic H.K. Millis to serve as the Director of Design and Construction of the City and County of Honolulu. Once again, this is for discussion only, and I would like to kick it over to the Director Designate Millis.
Good morning, committee chair and committee members. I'm Haku Millis. I am the director designate for the Department of Design and Construction. I want to thank you for this consideration, for the opportunity to discuss, the position, kind of how things have worked for us over the last 4 years, and kind of what we look forward to moving forward for the next term. For myself, I kind of wanted to talk specifically about what we're looking to do over the next 4 years. One of our main focuses is going to be on execution and construction. For myself and for my deputy, Mark Yonamine, we've kind of noticed that there is opportunity for improvement throughout our construction projects. Like many industries, we have contractors who are excellent, and we have some contractors who aren't as excellent. But the reality is we do so many different kinds of projects with so many different contractors. For example, we do we do road paving, we do structural work with the city bridges, we do drainage, rockfall. We do mechanical, electrical projects, HVAC systems, PV systems. We do work at the Blaisdell. We did a rigging project for the stage at the concert hall. We're supporting projects at the zoo. And so, we never know what the needs are of our client agencies. And just as a refresher, DDC is first and foremost a service agency. It's a service department where we work with our client agencies and departments to execute their capital improvement program. And what that means is we work closely with them in planning, engineering, design, all the way through construction of their needs, of their own city facilities. Sometimes it's a little more of a supportive role than others, depending on the demand of the project. But that's our main focus. We also are responsible for the energy conservation, long-term planning, and those kinds of projects, like installing PV in our energy service performance contract that is overseen by our mechanical and electrical division. But getting back to the construction aspect, what that means for us in having that focus is more direct involvement for myself and for my deputy at the very beginning, even in pre-bid. We want to set expectations and understand that maybe the best contractors that are out there aren't going to win the bid because we work in low bid. But what that means for us is an opportunity to work more closely. And even if we don't, maybe it's a new contractor or somebody we don't have an immediate relationship with, there's an opportunity there and a responsibility for DDC to make sure that if we hit a misstep or there are changes in the schedule, that we are there and we understand what needs to happen moving forward. We want to make sure that, things that were looked at in the past by contractors, maybe as opportunities to execute for the city, is we want to make sure that it's on behalf of everybody and that everybody will benefit. We want the contractors absolutely to make their profit, but we want us as a city to be getting what we are expecting. And I think that's where our main focus is. One of the other things we're looking at and have been looking at over the last 4 years is how we leave DDC better once our 4 years are up. One of our struggles has been retirements, and how do we make sure that our team is prepared to step up. We had some significant retirements in supervisor positions for us, and some of our staff didn't feel like they were quite ready. Having those conversations before the time came for them to step up, making sure they were getting the training that they needed, the mentorship that they needed, so that they felt comfortable in moving up, has allowed us to not only fill the position very easily and kind of seamlessly, but it has kind of created a culture shift, having the right people in the right positions. And so that's kind of what we are focusing on, continue to focus on, is the longevity as well through the development of our people. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, and happy to take questions or discuss other issues if you have. Thanks.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions? We have Council Vice Chair Wire.
Mahalo, Chair, and mahalo, Director, for being here. Appreciate that overview and the insight. Do you have any actual positions that are federally funded, or are they all general funded?
Our positions themselves are generally funded,
Okay.
And highway funded. Yeah.
And then some of the projects may overlap or have federal funds.
We are working towards getting more involved in federal funding, and so it's difficult to make that kind of a change with a department that hasn't done federal projects in the past. But our team has been adapting. We've been working through, fortunately, with the great leadership of DTS, getting necessary training for our team, and trying to work through those processes has allowed us to go after and looking to receive specific projects will get federal funding.
Okay, appreciate that. How have the differentials worked in terms of supporting staffing? Have you seen progress?
I'm sorry, in
The
what?
pay differentials for.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So yes, we were very fortunate to work very hard with the other engineering departments with DHR in successfully increasing the pay for our engineers and recently architects. We have noticed a significant increase in our applicants and interested parties. We've been able to fill significantly in those engineering positions. We had a section in our civil division that was completely empty. We are almost full in that section. Our mechanical electrical division, we don't have any vacancies anymore. So we have made a lot of progress in finding engineers who are willing and ready and happy to come to the city. So thank you for the question.
Okay, so would you attribute filling those positions largely due to the pay differential, or are there other factors to also consider?
Thank you for the question. I think that's a big part of it, but we have ramped up our recruiting efforts. We're doing a lot more career fairs and discussing opportunities with organizations. But in the end, you know, we had interviews before the pay difference happened. And unfortunately, when the applicant found out what exact salary was, it just, you know, the math didn't quite work out. And so that's not happening anymore. And so it is a huge contribution to our increase in staff.
Okay, appreciate that. And then just a couple more questions, and then thank you, Chair. So if you had to identify, I guess, today, kind of the biggest slowdown, backlog, barrier to you being able to successfully complete your work and the department's work, what comes or rises to the top of mind? You can think about it a second if you need to, but asking just to try to identify how I appreciate the work you're doing to fill these vacancies, particularly with the pay differentials, and then next step is like what can we continue to do to expedite and provide good workflow to get projects done as quickly as possible?
Thank you for the question. I think there are opportunities for improvement across the city as a whole, including within DDC. One of the things that seems to come up, and not necessarily in delays or the issues, but I think we can improve how we work with purchasing a lot better. The administration has taken upon themselves to create a working group to look for opportunities to improve purchasing. We've been working very closely and with some key staff that are in place right now. We've already started making some changes. We're looking at, you know, how the state has been effective in some of their contracts and trying to take advantage of that, learning from them. And so, you know, there are small things that we can change, and then there are big things that we can change. I think the big things is something that we are focused on with the working group. But in the meantime, you know, being able to meet directly with purchasing and with BFS on, hey, here's something we can adapt, we can change, do what the state's doing. That's where we can see some immediate change and start to see some improvement. Thanks.
Mahalo. Mahalo, Chair.
That was a great question. That's a great question, actually. We would like to hear more about the working group moving forward, and I don't know if that's going to be a budget discussion item too, since it's like a working group with the different agencies, right?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much I can get into all of that.
Don't divulge too much. Just
no, I mean I think it's open. You know, administration has talked about wanting to improve purchasing, and so you know it's good for everybody to understand that there is a focus on trying to improve this for everybody. You know, we'll start to see some changes and improvements, and yeah, I won't get into details of all of that, but you know. Krishna is here and could probably talk about it as well. I don't want to put him on the spot, but we're just glad that the administration is committed, right, to recognizing initially, right, to use DPP as an example. Administration said, hey, we recognize there's opportunity for improvement. Let's focus on it. Let's fix some things. I think Dawn has done a great job and Brian as well. And you know, looking and focusing on another department or another agency that we can improve is a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Millis. That actually touches back maybe if we were like a year ago, where actually Chair Waters, it brought me back to a year ago where Chair Waters was like, you know how we've been focusing on DBP, maybe we should focus on DDC now, right? And so I'm not trying to bring it back, those types of discussions, but you hit the nail on the head where it's like, yeah, focusing, like they focus on DPP and those efficiencies, and now looking at, is it purchasing? What, BFS? No, is it's related to purchasing for BFS and the rest of the agencies, yeah? Okay, on that. That's so great to hear. So, okay, members, any questions? Councilmember Okimoto? No, Councilmember Okimoto? Committee Vice Chair Okimoto, excuse me.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, good morning, Director Designee Millis. Thank you for being here. I wanted to just follow up. I know when you first came on, that we started about the same time, and you had sat with us, and I think I still have it. You brought this big spreadsheet on the projects in the district, and that might have been new to you at that time, but I feel like I haven't actually seen or heard updates from that, and I wanted to know, one, what is the communication that will be moving forward, and two, I think that, and it's kind of connecting to what committee chair had just mentioned, with the many different departments that touch projects, and we have this conversation before, it gets confusing for me, because let's say I always go back to in my district, the Pearl City Fire Station, where I don't know where that is. I heard it was between departments, and sometimes I don't know if the departments know where projects are. So how can we communicate better? How can we get information for our districts?
Thank you for the question. So the chart that you're talking about, so we put out the bubble chart that you guys all see with your projects. We look at that as kind of just a check-in for you guys. You can review it and immediately reach out to us for clarification or questions or discussion. I want to make sure that you all feel, and the rest of council feels, that we are accessible to be able to provide information or meet as needed. The chart that you're mentioning, so Alex Kozlov, who is the former director, he started kind of informally wanting to initiate what he called red zone projects, which is something I wanted to take on, and so it kind of lost a little bit of steam. One of the things that I recognized was a bit of a deficiency for DDC. When I came on, even when I came on as a deputy, we didn't have a public information officer. It's something that we felt like we should have in DDC. Fortunately, when I became director, I was able to work with HR and our ASO that we created the position, and we have brought on a PIO to be able to support us in that fashion. And I apologize that I'm not sure she's met each of you, but we will make sure that you have access to her as well. When it comes to the projects and getting specific updates, you can always reach out to us, and we want to make sure that we would bring in the necessary parties. If it's an active construction project, typically it's us. It'll be DDC. Parks isn't necessarily going to understand the construction schedule or some of the issues that we are facing, which is potentially creating a delay that you're looking into. But then there are other projects that involve land or easements, purchasing or selling of land that is an overlap. And so it's not always clear that you can call one agency and then they're going to be able to give you the answer, and I apologize for that. But if it is a project, you can reach out to me directly, and I'm willing to sit down and meet, and if we need to bring in other agencies, I know we've done that in the past. Very happy to, and I know the rest of the cabinet is as well.
Thank you. So from what I'm understanding, the best practice for us is to reach out to you guys, and not wait for you to contact us. Is it the PIO that you said you have a position for now? What's the intent? What is her position? What does she do? Who does she present information to?
So thank you for the question. So our PIO, she is a public information officer. So initially, we have been working to get her up to speed. Her name is Cindy Cromwell. Get her up to speed and learn a little bit more about, engineering and construction industry. And so we're getting her out on projects. She's being more closely involved with other PIOs in other departments to make sure what we put out is in line with their intent of the facility that we're doing, just aligning schedules, making sure we're putting things out for emergency projects and stuff like that. At the same time, the expectation when she came in was that she would be able to have a direct line with council and be able to, track down agencies if it's not DDC, to be able to get you guys the information that you need.
Okay, that's good to know because I actually didn't know about the PIO. And I know that I've in the past hunted you down personally, but we get busy and so I haven't been able to. So I think for me, I guess personally, to be able to connect with the departments better and maybe if you don't hear from us, come hunt us down as well. And if you're telling me that we have to seat you guys, and I'll make note of that. But it would be helpful to know when we're wondering where projects are, that there's an open door to you guys, especially when it pertains to our districts. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, just real quick, absolutely. And so kind of for us, what we feel like is notifying of you guys is putting out the bubble chart. And so if we don't hear back, we assume that everything, you don't have any questions or any issues or stuff like that. But, sometimes we do get inquiries, we get calls. What is easiest for us is to put in a riser, because we want to make sure that we don't miss an email or a phone call. It gets tracked by the system. Sometimes we have to reach out, to like DFM if they're involved in something. And so it just gets tracked, and we make sure that we provide a timely and full response to you guys. Thanks.
Thank you. And so I just want to have clarification that is it emailed or is it posted for the bubble charts? Or
Yeah, so that I believe is sent over directly to each of you.
okay, got it. Thank you. And we can maybe set up something with Cindy as well for any of the members. Okay, we have Councilmember Tapola.
Thank you. Sorry, just for clarification, the bubble chart is sent out to us in an email, and that's the update.
Yes, so it's I think there's a full list of our projects, and then it is separated by council district.
And the only way we access it is through this email, and it's distributed monthly?
Yeah, I believe it is through email that you are notified, and then you have access to the full list.
Is it monthly?
Yes.
Okay. So is this public or is it just for us? Is it on your website?
Ooh, I'm not sure if it's publicly distributed, to be honest. But I know that it's sent to council.
Okay, I'll have to track down what this bubble sheet looks like. I think what Councilmember Okimoto brought up is what I was going to say is the last time I ever saw anything was the one time you guys met with us and busted out the chart. And that was the last time I ever saw the updates, but I guess maybe I'll look in the email. I think if there was a way through DIT to maybe work a better like update solution, like that would be great. Because I think it's a little hard to parse out that information to our community. So usually when I used to get it from Director Kozlov, I would try to copy and paste from a certain cell and then send it to the neighborhood board because they wanted to know what was up with that project. So it was a little bit difficult, but that's the last time I did it was when I got that chart and then I started sending out updates. But if there's a way we can work with DIT to make it just a little more digestible and then also a little bit more shareable. So if it is public information that is shareable, then we can direct them to an actual site and not have to look through our email and then create an email and then create a document and then share it with them and then say, hey, when the next update comes, we'll do that again for you guys. So I think the new DIT director has a can-do attitude.
Absolutely.
So let's see if he can do it.
Thank you. Definitely willing to talk with him about how we can improve the system, but I'm happy to reach out to you offline and make sure you have the most updated chart.
That's great. And I think another question I had was from the council ads that we put in, you know, is it a priority for your department to do at least one of the council ads that we put in every year, or how do you guys prioritize our ads?
Thank you for the question. So I think it's important for all of us to understand that the additional projects put in by council isn't prioritized by only one department. And so for us, we work very closely with the administration and what we would call the owner or client agency for that project to see if that's something that needs to be prioritized and immediately worked on. And so, you know, unfortunately, the decision doesn't solely ride with DDC, although we do work, as I said, very closely with our client agencies on that.
Understood. And it's a question I can maybe follow up with Deputy Managing Director or with Managing Director, because I think for us, those are some of the projects that we want follow-ups on, not just like the general spread of things going on in the district, but the ones we've actually brought up, that the neighborhood board has brought up, that we brought up. So in very rare circumstances, I'll bring up one. With the lifeguard stand at Kahe, it went from neighborhood board to me to here to you guys, it got done. But in many, many other circumstances, it just kind of falls into the black hole. So if there is a way for us to just, you know, not that the other projects aren't important, but there are certain projects that people have asked us for years after year after year, and those ones are pretty important to us. So I think any alignment we can do with what we're requesting would be great.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And members, any other questions? Council Chair Waters.
Thank you, Chair Cordero. Director, I just want to thank you for your hard work, your collaboration, and your transparency. You don't have an easy job, but I for one, recognize the hard work that you're doing. I do want to follow up on what Council Chair or Committee Chair Cordero was saying that, you know, we did focus on you guys a year ago, and you responded. I do want to point out, members, the bubble chart, I have copies that I can share with you guys. This is in response. I know Kozlov came up with the idea, but you perfected it. It talks about each of the DDC projects in our district, and it talks about what's complete, in progress, not started, or inactive and not reviewed. It talks about the scope phase, plan design phase, the bid phase, the pre-construction phase, and the construction phase, and then it's color-coded. So this thing is so good that, and I'm happy to share it with the other council members, but I do believe you email it to us every month. The other thing I wanted to point out that's really helpful was Department Communication 11. While the bubble chart only shows what DDC does, Department Communication 11 put out by you on January 28th is the CIP projects. This one's a little bit harder to read, I have to admit, but well, I'll just read what you said. Submitted herewith is Department Design and Construction Capital Improvement Program Quarterly Status Report for fiscal year 2025, second quarter ending December 31st, 2024, including a report sorted by council district. So I pulled out all my District 4 stuff. And it does update us, and it tells us who the contractors are, which is super helpful because I kind of wanted to see these projects. If the contractor is not doing their job, let's go down. We know who to call. We can just call them directly. Hey, not saying that I won't even mention some of these names. I was going to say, but we can call them up, members. Hey, what's going on with this project in our district? Because as you mentioned, some contractors are good, some aren't. But this is a really good tool, and just want to thank you for that. I do have a question though. So a lot of us get complaints, and there's so many things that we get complaints on. That's why, as you put, these hearings are important so that we can talk about it publicly and we can show our constituents that we're actually doing our job. But okay, so sidewalks, they break all the time. And if you walk anywhere in Honolulu, you're going to see uneven sidewalks and it's dangerous. But part of it is trees that we're planting are not the appropriate tree. And I think DPR has a goal of 35% tree canopy by 2035. But if we continue to put the wrong trees in, we're going to continue to have to go and fix these sidewalks. So is it possible, and you tell me if DDC has nothing to do with this, but is it possible that DDC, DTS, and DPR can work together to figure out how we can solve this problem?
Thank you. Thank you first for the recognition of the chart. I definitely can't take credit for that. Our team does an amazing job putting that together, and we work very closely with our client agencies to make sure what we're providing you is the latest and greatest information. Yeah, our team works very hard. We have, like I said, we just have such a great team at DDC. Regarding the tree issue and the sidewalks, I think there is recognition across the city through DPP, DPR, that we really need to be conscious about the types of trees that are selected and put in. As of right now, there's no plan to go, rip out a bunch of trees and make those changes and fix the sidewalks. For us, typically we would get involved on a replacement of a sidewalk when it involves, repaving the road, and that's something that needs to be done. We look to DFM to let us know when something can't be repaired easily and it needs to turn into a construction project. But I know that DFM has been successful in replacing sidewalks. As you mentioned, the underlying issue is, what kind of tree is there and is it going to create more damage? It would require a lot of coordination where, DFM is able to go fix a sidewalk. The changes that would need to happen with the trees, getting them taken out. Some of these are pretty big trees and would require a significant amount of funding to be able to do a stretch of sidewalk. It's definitely something that we can talk more about and coordinate. And if it becomes, stretches of sidewalk that absolutely have to be replaced, including the trees, it would probably turn into a big CIP project that DDC would take on. But for now, to be honest, there aren't a lot of sole sidewalk projects that we need to take on. We do curb ramps and involve some sidewalks, but no long stretches right now. We do have some plans for Waikiki sidewalks, those kinds of projects, but nothing immediately comes to mind as something currently in design aside from Waikiki. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any further questions? Oh, yeah, that's right. Council Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And just come back to the working group and procurement conversation. Because I just want to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page, because I know Director Quano had mentioned in his committee meeting that there's going to be some training of staff. So that's your understanding as well, that DDC staff would be trained on maybe process and how a more complete package can be sent over to BFS. Is that kind of what the discussion is?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. It does include some training to our staff. Some changes that we're looking to would involve more responsibility on our part as opposed to purchasing. So that might be what he's talking a little bit about too.
Okay.
Yeah, we recognize the problem isn't solely with purchasing, right? Every agency, including our own, can find ways to be more efficient or improve our processes.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to double check because I wasn't sure if I was imparting my desired outcome in interpreting his, what he's saying in terms of training. But I just bring it up because I think that is fair to talk about. I'm sure different departments submit varying degrees of packets to BFS, particularly if you have like contracts or NOFAs that are more like how you have a template already versus maybe a more specialized type of knowledge that goes in. And I know different departments probably have varying types of requests that go in. So that was what I was curious about. And so thank you for the insight on that. And then just on the working group side, I mean, is it fair that there's an understanding that once the council is the appropriating body, appropriates funds for a position or an activity or a project, that the legitimacy, like the policy reasoning and the justification of a particular position or policy or project has already been decided, right? Like the council, with its appropriating authority, has made that determination. And so BFS's main role is ensuring compliance with probably all the applicable laws. It's not necessarily their role to come in and say, oh, do you need to fill this position? Like, why do you need to fill this position? Because I mean, that's the council's purview, right? So I'm assuming, is that a fair understanding amongst everyone in the working group, the administration? Not to put you on the spot, and you could, say that's going to be something to be discussed, but just wanted to make sure there's not like a shifting of power or authority in terms of who actually is deciding the policy perspective and what's a legitimate project and position, versus ensuring we're complying with all the applicable standards and rules and laws, particularly around procurement, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that, and thank you for explaining. I don't think there is trying to be a change in the policy or anything like that. I think, very simply put, administration recognized an opportunity for improvement and said, let's shed some light on that internally. Let's meet with whoever can get involved. We can share our issues and try to work through them together. So, in terms of additional staff or those kinds of responsibilities, I don't know that it's there or going to be there. I think, kind of as I mentioned, there's low-hanging fruit for opportunity, and we can definitely take advantage of those quickly. But I would defer to Krishna if he wants to discuss this further. Thanks.
No, I appreciate that, and no need. I just wanted to flesh it out and hear kind of where the working group was. So I'm sure there'll be like a thorough conversation about improving processes. But just because that's been flagged, not by any departments, but just from folks in the community and just kind of talking through challenges, and might not even be happening at DDC, but just, for example, like I would assume BFS would never be asking a department like, oh, why do you need this position filled? Because if it's in the budget and the council already made the policy decision that it's worthy of filling, that decision's been made. And so it'd be more about ensuring compliance with process. So appreciate that. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for the appointment of the director? Okay, so I have one question. I was wondering, or a few questions, about, first off, you touched on a lot of the efficiency and like consolidating things, right, with within your divisions, as well as your relationship with other agencies. And do you have any other goals as a director that would just better assist you in how you work with your department?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think in terms of our internal goals, I have my own personal goals where I recognize, I could be more present with my employees and spend more time. We have, 4 floors at FMB. And so sometimes you get into the grind and the groove and you don't get out. So one of the things, just to share, since you asked, is to be, walking the floors and see more of our day-to-day with our guys, so that they understand, I'm here, I'm accessible, I want to know what they're working on. I hope they understand that. But for the most part, the goals kind of that I shared and the things that I want to focus on are, I kind of stated already. One of the things that I kind of came to mind as you were asking the question was how we work with other agencies and other departments. We are working we're close on resolving an MOU between DDC and DFM. I think there's sometimes confusion on the outside as well as internally to our departments of who is responsible for this issue. We've been working closely with Director Albano and Deputy Director Mamizuka on an MOU with our chiefs and their chiefs, you know, going back and forth. It feels like we're very close. And that way, you know, we can have a clear line of understanding within the departments, but also even for council, right? If something comes up, you're able to know, hey, this is a DFM responsibility. We can reach out to them. So just things like that where, you know, we recognize some, I don't want to say issues, but some disconnect. There's opportunity to improve, and so we try to do the best we can.
Thank you. I really appreciate that you mentioned that both DFM as well as your department are working together on not just, so you said an MOU on what roles you'll both have, right? And for what type of projects? Is that what it will be? It won't be too stringent though, right?
No, apologies for not clarifying. It's not super stringent. I think on the surface, right, DDC executes the projects and then it's the responsibility of DFM to maintain. But there is so much potential overwork depending on what the project is or what the issue is. We need DFM to be involved while we're in construction so that they understand what the maintenance responsibility is, right? They need to be able to provide input and say, oh, you can't do it that way, you know, it's gonna be too difficult for our guys, or it's unsafe, or whatever. They need to understand the facilities that we're putting in, whether it's electrical, HVAC, or whatever, because of the responsibility that they have. And so, you know, it's those kinds of things just across the board through all of our projects.
Thank you. That is super fantastic to hear. Like that's awesome. And it's crazy that there isn't already. So I just want to say that. Members, any other comments about that? Okay. I do also, oh, sorry, go ahead, Director.
I will note there was a previous MOU between previous directors that essentially just needed to be updated. There are changes in kind of responsibilities, and over the years, you know, you just have to make sure that both departments are operating in the way that the city needs, and so that's kind of where we are, and that's why. So there has been one in the past. I just
Okay.
wanted to note that.
Do we have a timeline on when you'll be agreeing to this MOU?
It feels like we're really close. Probably over the next month. Maybe Gene can talk about it too. But yeah, it feels like we're very close. So I would think over the next month or so we should be able to get it through.
Okay, thank you. We have Council Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. Hey, you know, I'm going over this annual CIP report, and it is divided by districts 1 through 9. But at the end, it says Council District 99. As I'm looking through it, you break it out like fire station building improvements, erosion improvements, flood control improvements, and then it's further broken down by council district. But this is a PDF form. Is there any way we can get it in a searchable format so that we can just type in, if we want to know erosion control dealing with District 8 as an example, we can just type in and it'll show up. So like in an Excel format?
Thank you for the question. So we operate our entire project database with a program that essentially spits out the report as we need it as a PDF. I'm definitely open to the idea and something we can talk with DIT about. It's not something that very easily we can make a change and accommodate, but definitely open to making things easier for you guys to review and get the information that you need.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have another question relating to, first off, thank you for ensuring that your staff does send the bubble charts out to us. May I make a request or suggestion to have the council members also included in those emails? I know that your staff are CC'd in it, but we just want to ensure that the members themselves get it to their emails, because not all of our staff are with us at any given moment, and when we need to do a follow-up, yeah, it would be great for us to be able to save it to our emails and then just like pull it up anytime. Thank you.
Understood. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? No. This is great. I was just typing to myself that I really wish I could just like take snippets of everything you just said. Oh, I guess I can. It's on YouTube. So, and because you explained so many things that I don't say we have a hard time doing, but I think even for myself, who's going to be, it's going to be my 13th year at the city. So I have a difficult time determining DDC, DFM, or like where you guys are overlapping. So thank you very much. I really appreciate this discussion, and like seriously, just the opportunity for you to be before our committees. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next we will have agenda item number 6, 20. Oh wait, excuse me. I need to do testimony. We will now proceed with remote testimony. We don't have any registered remote testifiers. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? And also, I should clarify that even though the TVs are off, we're still being streamed. Okay, seeing none, hearing none. We will now proceed with in-person testimony. We don't have any registered in-person testifiers. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Seeing none, members, we are in discussion. Okay, hopefully next committee, we will see our Director of Design and Construction move forward to be appointed. Very supportive of, it's very hard for me to say thank you in committees. I don't know. People have been able to tell that I'm not very, I don't show my gratitude and appreciation well in committees, but I really appreciate our 3 directors that we have here. I think I have to say I have the closest I shouldn't say that. Closest, whatever I'll say. Close relationship to these 3 directors than anyone else on the what's it called, administration. I'm gonna say it. Okay. All right. Okay. Agenda item number 6. We have resolution 25-14, which confirms the nomination of Jean C. Albano, PE, to serve as the chief engineer of the Department of Facility Maintenance of the City and County of Honolulu.
Good morning, Committee Chair Cordero, members of the committee, Council Chair Waters. It is truly my privilege to represent the Department of Facility Maintenance as Chief Engineer Designate and Director Designate. The department is responsible for maintaining city-owned assets that include building facilities, electrical systems, roads, sidewalks, streams, and it is truly the department that allows city constituents to have the best quality of life to the best extent possible, in addition to having public safety and health. And it is true, their work, 600 plus strong men and women that provide, in my course of 20 months, 10,000 automotive work orders, 100 miles of preserving roads surfaces, 10 miles of resurfacing roads, 30,000 square feet of reconstructing sidewalks, disposing of 600 tons of trash. Much of it is personal property, 400 work orders of building repairs, in addition to 11,000 stormwater quality inspections. So it is truly my honor to be able to do that, along with Deputy Director Warren Mamizuka. And in that course, I've tried to use my executive experience to expand our core service and understand how we can better improve or be efficient, as mentioned earlier. And it is through visionary leadership that I've tried to impart to our chiefs, where we want to develop a sense of positive culture, a process of efficiency, and the ability to have the right staff resources as well as equipment and materials. And it is through that vision that I hope that I have the next 4 years to do. I'm proud to say that as it relates to culture, we are the first department to actually deploy a anonymous employee engagement survey to the entire department that allows the staff to be a voice of concern, to provide leadership feedback in terms of how we can actually improve. And through the initial results of that survey, we have recognized that there have been long-standing notions of perhaps misunderstanding in terms of hiring, and we are addressing that moving forward. When it comes to process, we are seeing how we can utilize technology in terms of how we become more efficient. One is an example of the current parking permit process, in which it is pretty much done manually through Excel, and we are actually in the process of working hand in hand with DAT to have that become an e-form, where much of the signature process will be eliminated, and that we can actually have a much more efficient methodology as it comes to the parking permit process. And lastly, just resources. I'm truly proud that I challenged the leadership to go higher, as in support by the mayor and administration, and we were able to hire 100 plus strong last year that reduced our vacancy rate by 10%. We are in the same progress, hopefully, to again hire over 100 new hires and be able to figure out how then to retain moving forward. Through retention, we are hopeful to provide a program in terms of reward and recognition, and be able to have the department truly be a place of work where they are proud, knowing that they are the silent arm of public health and safety for the city. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I would be more than open to take some questions at this time.
Thank you, Director. That is a lot of great new very new information. That's awesome. Sorry, I don't know how to collect my thoughts there because there's so many things I want to pick at, but I will open it up to the committee members first. I have Councilmember Santos-Tam and Councilmember Chapula afterwards.
Thank you, Director Designate. DFM has many jobs within the city, and so I wanted to ask you if you could talk briefly about the biggest challenges that each division within DFM faces, and then what resources do those divisions need to succeed? Because the work that you do, the nuts and bolts stuff, is really what the citizens see every day. Potholes in the sidewalk and the street signs and all of that.
Thank you, Council Member Dos Santos, for that question. Let me start off with the automotive group. First thing was the ability to go and hire staff. We are pleased to announce that we are in a position that we have hired all of the automotive technicians. And so it is now the ability to receive parts, receive equipment, and which this is where the automotive division struggles the most, is the ability to just simply obtain parts, equipment in a timely manner. It's a global issue, and we do our best to try and address receiving parts to be able to repair the automotive fleet, whether it's for the city or other departments.
Thank you, Councilmember Tupola.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
That was only automotive.
Oh,
Uh,
go ahead.
Stormwater quality. Stormwater quality is in a position where they have pretty much hired all of their staff. The next step for them is the ability to enforce stormwater quality. And there are some constraints in terms of available budget. And I believe there is a general consensus that ultimately there will be a need for an enterprise fund to address stormwater quality as a whole. They're doing their best with the current staff and current budget, but there will be certainly a time in which it is appropriate to consider introducing an enterprise fund. With respect to properties and buildings, as well as roads, the issue is also with labor force. We have made strides to hire the lower positions last year. We have focused this year to provide promotions, and that is the progress we've made. Now, being able to backfill the positions that have been vacated takes time. It is through the hiring process in which the staff or the promotion requires a probational period of 6 months, so we cannot fill the vacant position for at least 6 months. If there was a means to be able to address that time to backfill more quickly, expeditiously, that is perhaps something that we'd be wanting to figure out as a department. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Aloha, Director. Thank you for being here with us. You know, I'm a huge fan of your department. Definitely a lot of your guys come out with me physically to kind of look at things with our own eyes that need to happen. And I deeply appreciate that. The community is always grateful to see exactly who's going to implement it. And of course, the engineers you have are so knowledgeable that they're able to kind of give that on-site feedback so that people know that they know what they're talking about. And, you know, Tyler's awesome, Warren's awesome. So I guess my questions are, and I think you just said that you hired 100 people last year. Did I hear that right?
That is correct.
That's impressive. I'm just saying, a lot of the departments have huge amounts of vacancies. So what's your secret sauce exactly?
I think top of mind, I feel like me being somewhat of a crack the whip guy, I know leadership often gets tired of my constant top of mind approach, but it's really just the focus to understand that hiring is a necessity for our department, and they have finally recognized that with that focus, our staff have the ability to serve the public more efficiently and be less. I don't want to say stress, but having the support to be able to do their job
No,
day to day.
I think you're right. And that's why a lot of times when we ask the departments, you know, what are the struggles to hiring, there's a lot of reasons or excuses of like, well, it's difficult or the position appointment, but literally it just needs to be a priority. Because I think if it's a priority, then you do get that position reclassified, or you do get that, you know, position filled, or have a job fair, reach out or headhunt the exact person that you need for that job that you know wants to do it. So bravo on that. My question is in regards to our SPOs. I still feel like we don't have a good process for it. I mean, I do go to the SPO meetings. I know that we coordinate and whatnot, but I do think that there really is no specific budget set aside for it. You guys are kind of utilizing whatever extra funds you guys have to kind of get it done. We're over there begging DOT, HTM to join us, trying to figure out if Parks has a truck that works, trying to figure out if. So I know that that's how it's been going so far, and I'm glad to be a part of the process. I'm glad for ENV, you guys, DPR, everyone who participates, but literally you guys kind of hold the brunt of it. So is there a better proposal on how we could do this and actually set money aside for it instead of you guys saying, hey, if you guys scrap this, then we won't have money for that? Because we really haven't talked really heavily about how this is the reason why and the only way we can clean the park.
That is a very complicated question in which it is probably not as straightforward to dedicate staff uh, or provide additional funding for SPO. I think it's a collective effort given the legality of SPO in which it's not the city or our department simply does not have uh, the ability just to go clean.
Oh, no, I'm well
yeah.
aware of the complications. I think that internally that you guys should be tracking exactly how much manpower, how much money you're using. And if that's not something that's disclosed to the public, that's fine. But I think that on a regular basis, it would be good to know if it's actually starting to balloon up and it's becoming a very expensive project because we don't know. We don't know if the SPOs are actually becoming more and more costly or if they're at the same rate they were 5 years ago. Because I'm only grateful that DOT jumps in and that they bring cars and guys and whatever, but manpower, finances, time, like I know that in the SPO meetings I sit in, it's always like a push and pull with, okay, these districts need that, these districts need this. So I'm not asking for anything like miraculous. I'm just saying it is a huge part for me of keeping our parks clean and keeping the community clean. So we should be mindful that we track it, that we make a clear process for it, that we set money aside for it, if this truly is part of us keeping the city safe and keeping our parks clean.
Thank you for your comment. I will take that under advisement and perhaps we can meet down the road to discuss further.
Yeah, and I would say that if it is actually in the parks, then DPR should be leading it. And if it is outside of the parks, if it's in a canal, if it's under a bridge or wherever that we have the easement or we own the property, then maybe you guys lead it. But there needs to be this specific delineation so that we can gauge where the resources are coming from, because right now we're pulling it from everywhere.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Director. Thank
Thank
you, Chair.
you, and we will certainly follow up with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Council Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. Mall Director for being here, all the work you're doing. So just to come back to kind of go through some of the vacancy discussions and filling positions. So in your experience, have the differentials helped in filling positions?
For our department, much of the positions are more manual labor, so differentials is not as critical. It has helped with our technical staff in terms of our engineers. We have been able to hire 2 out of the 4 engineers for our planning and project management office. And without those differentials, I believe we would not be competitive and any candidate would not consider it. So we feel like the differentials have made a difference in terms of hiring.
Appreciate that. And when you bring up the difference between the manual labor positions and the technical positions, or however we want to classify it, is that because the differentials, the pay differentials, are currently only applicable to one of those groups?
Yes, as well as having to negotiate with the unions with respect to the labor rates
I see.
or salaries.
But then for the labor salaries, we don't have, are pay differentials accessible by the department for those positions?
I'm sorry?
Are pay differentials accessible by the department for those positions?
I believe so.
Okay. So they're currently being utilized or they're not?
Not to the extent in which we are we have favorable hiring.
Okay. So the pay what is the pay differential for the manual labor positions?
I don't know offhand, but I can get back to you on that as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, no, that would be perfect. And then do you have any positions that are currently federally funded, or are they all general funds?
We do not have any federal funded positions.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Director Albano? Okay. Council Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. Like with Haku Milas, I just want to thank you for all your hard work. You and your deputy, thank you. You guys have been super responsive and I appreciate it. very much. Um, you did bring up something like kind of scary, right? We're talking about storm water quality. I think you're alluding to the storm water utility that has been floated. And I understand that across the entire island, our stormwater drains and pipes need to be replaced or upgraded. And I know certainly in my district, when it rains hard, the pipes cannot handle, like on 11th Avenue, they cannot handle the water and it overflows and it goes into people's homes and it's happening all over the place. And what was initially suggested was charging homeowners a fee if they don't capture the water, right? Rather than putting it on the street and simply going into the ocean. Which, I gotta say, the previous administration wanted to implement a garbage pickup fee, and people were super upset about that. That's why I think this council has been very cautious in adopting that idea. But I think that's why I was asking Director Kawano yesterday a lot of questions about how we can generate revenue through other means, like sponsorship of, our facilities, like the empty homes tax and other things, so that we can fix our water quality and storm system. But having said that, looking again through the CIP update, I got papers everywhere. That's why it's so much easier if it was searchable. But you got it in here on page 195. It's flood control. It's broken out by district. And District 1, Ulehava Stream. Yeah. District 2. Actually, no, nothing on District 2. You might want to ask why. But it has it, and certainly in my district, right? We have Alawai Canal. Yeah, all those streams leading into Alawai Canal. Kamiluiki Stream, Kulio O Stream, Wailai Flood Channel, Wailupe Stream. You got a big job, man. But did I hear you correctly say that Stormwater Quality Division is now fully staffed?
They're pretty close to being fully staffed.
Yeah. Thank you.
They have many of the engineers' positions filled, the environmental technicians, the administrative staff. They have pretty much filled much of the positions there, many of the positions.
To the extent that you can, and we see Deputy Managing Director here too, so thank you for being here. That's the kind of issues that keep me up at night, right? The EMV sewer fee, the stormwater utility fee, citing a new landfill. All those budgetary, in my mind, we need these. These are requirements. We got to do it, right? We cannot just keep kicking the can down the road. But at the same time, where do we get the money for this? We've made it clear we don't want to raise taxes on our local residents. People are leaving Hawaii in the thousands. But anyway, that's I'm with you, and I want to find the money to help you with the storm water. But again, thank you and your deputy for all your good work.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, so Director Albano, I know that you remember the times during the stream when the streams were either paved over or concreted over or other types of now known as toxic uses were used to just kill the weeds and everything. Have you and your department looked at any possible ways to mitigate the growth of the streams? Because we know that once it's cut, and then when DFM is coming back into those streams, it's just 5 times over grown already. So, I mean, is there a way to, I mean, have you looked at anything across the nation, internationally, that could help just mitigate the growth, the growth
When
of
it
that?
comes to channels that have not been concrete lined, it simply is the natural. It vegetation will grow, and unless we are able to concrete line those sections of the streams, we will continue to simply do the same thing in terms of maintenance. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah. Well, I don't want you to have to concrete line everything, and I wouldn't want you to also use toxic materials in our streams. But especially in from Kalihi Stream to Moanalua, I know Director Millis hears from the AEA residents all the time about the different streams. I mean, he was just on last night. So I just wanna, we're just being asked, like, we know that the department has like one tractor, one crane, whatever it is, and then we have to wait for the whole rotation to come back around. And I mean, I know that you have a lot of experience and have a lot of different contacts on uh, to to just figure out other best practices to mitigate these to mitigate
Thanks
your
for
work.
bringing up the cranes. So
Yeah, crane.
we are in the process of actually getting the second long reach crane. So that will certainly be a difference maker. We're hopeful that we've waited our turn for it, and we're hopeful to be able to have that be procured this calendar year and have 2 long reach cranes to continue to try and maintain those streams as best as practicable.
Thank you. That's fantastic. I know that I've never had to say like we only our one sole long reaching crane is down.
There is other technologies that we certainly don't want to be the guinea pig in terms of perhaps using drones in the future, but we are certainly looking at other technologies that might be beneficial to be able to maintain the streams. It is certainly useful in terms of inspections, but in terms of actual maintenance, we'll see globally how that can be addressed, and in due time apply practical approaches in terms of stream maintenance.
Thank you. Yes, Council Chair Waters.
Great news to hear about the crane. Is the crane used for stream maintenance?
Stream maintenance, including, street maintenance, including having to dig sand, taking the sand out.
Yeah, can I also give a shout out to you and your team, because in Kuli'o'o there was a problem with drainage of one of these culverts, and your team went out there a couple times with shovels, like 10 guys with shovels, just moving sand, and the crane could probably come in there and do them faster. Yeah, and that you saw what happened in that big rain a few weeks ago, where Kuli'o'o on the Makai side of Kalani on the Ole Highway flooded. But that's where the crane could have come in and cleaned that stream mouth. Yeah. I see you nodding, so that's great news. Great news. Thank you.
Crossing our fingers, but it is through council support that we are able to get funding for additional equipment, critical equipment.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another thing that I want to ask, Director, is I know that you've been, you know well about the task on DFM for waterways, right? Especially like I'm talking about Salt Lake Waterway, and then enforcing on those private entities. And you may not be there yet, but I was wondering if you have been able to focus a little bit on certain ordinances like that that will then I'm not, it's not for the revenue. I'm not saying that, but it's to really just, it'll give us revenue, yes, but to kind of have these actors who own these private waterways act better.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. We are actually working with the state. They have bills uh, addressing private owners and their lack of responsibility in stream cleaning. And so we are working closely with the state to develop perhaps more stringent enforcement requirements, including penalties. And there are legal issues with that, obviously, but we are trying to address that specific issue where private owners are not doing their part in stream maintenance.
Thank you. I have another question as it relates to roads. Um, uh, I was going to ask Director Melissis, but I think I've asked him enough in the last 3-4 years. And I think I mentioned this to you privately, but for the public, because we do talk about this, especially in Kalihi, instead of the road rehabilitation, road reconstruction, because we know that when we do start to kind of pave over, and a lot of the times it kind of just adds up a little bit. And I know that Director Melissis has heard this, and I know that there's a cost added to it, but at a certain point, the cost is just to be so great and the effects are going to be so great that we need to do road reconstruction, I think, right? So what is that breaking point? Do you have experience with that? Or when do you get to say, as one of the agencies, that, hey folks, we need to just go deeper and start over anew again?
Yeah, so in terms, I'm not a civil engineer, so from my limited experience, it really is trying to extend the life of a road, and whether that is through resurfacing or um, preservation, it, we do our best to extend it until DDC can identify CIP projects to do the bigger project in terms of reconstruction. So uh, DFM tries to do their best to work, no, not try, we do work hand in hand with DDC as it relates to identifying when to preserve or just simply extend the life of road surfaces or and work with DDC to reconstruct, rehabilitate roads.
Understood. Thank you. Another thing that I want to bring up is the amount of vehicles that this that majority of the city relies on from DFM. So I look to Councilmember Topola because, and actually as well as Councilmember Okimoto, because if they are some parks vehicles as well as public safety vehicles, right, that go to the different corporation yards and are supported by DFM. With that, I was wondering if, with the capacity of the different yards, like if that's enough for you and DFM, or if there's a specific need somewhere. I know you specifically can't ask us anything, but is there something that may be amiss that the council can assist?
With respect to automotive maintenance, now that we have filled all of the mechanic positions, we are trying to potentially reactivate deactivated mechanic positions this upcoming fiscal year. So the more we can rely on resources, the better we can serve the various departments with respect to automotive maintenance.
Thank you. And you said D, like DE, activate or reactivate?
Reactivate deactivated positions. Yeah.
Okay, got
Bring
it.
it back online. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. That helps a lot. I do have to say, so it feels very awkward for me because, like I mentioned to Director Millis, like I'm not really good at thanking people in committee, but thank you for your, I guess, innovation and going beyond just like the no responses. We've had long-standing concerns from 20 years that with your division chiefs going out, over and over again, yes, taking some prompt from our constituents because they're prompting us as well, to find solutions. I just got an update from people in Foster Village about one of your division heads just being amazing, looking at a solution. I'm just like, that's exactly it. That's what we need. And so I really appreciate just how not just you, but your division division chiefs have been leading in that manner as well. It's awesome, seriously awesome, and it looks really great for the city as a whole, really. So thank you.
Thank you for that comment, and it is a reflection of the leadership. I am just part of that. It is truly the leadership that has embraced the encouragement of us being responsive, reliable, and resilient.
Oh, nice. Like the R's. Okay, well, are there any other comments before we move to testimony? Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, we're still in discussion. Okay, Councilmember Okimoto.
Sorry, I know that we're in between questions. I just wanted to add in, I appreciate, I know when you first started, and it was soon after I got into this seat, you had a lot of energy and positive, I could see in your eyes how many of us look when we come into a new setting. And so I often go back because I know that I'm not as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as I used to be when I first got into politics. But I will encourage you, and I thank you for staying positive. And I think the reflection of your the good that you bring is reflected in what you're doing in the department right now. So thank you for all that you're doing to be responsive to us. It means a lot to myself, and I know my colleagues as well. And thank you for what you're doing to keep our community safe. We'll have continued discussion, but I didn't want today to go without saying mahalo to you.
Thank you, Council
Thank
Member.
you.
And it's reciprocal. My ability to have this position is not because of me personally. It's the ability to having positive working relationships with everyone in the city, and it's truly has been my honor to become part of the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll now move on to testimony. We don't have any registered remote testifiers, but is there anyone else online who wishes to testify?
Chair, there is none.
Okay, we will now proceed with in-person testimony. We don't have any registered in-person testifiers. I don't see anyone in the chamber, so we will now, is there anyone else who wishes to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we're back in discussion, Okay, well, Director Albano, I know that, when you were appointed, the first time we got to see and just talk with you was really when we approved you, approved of you to be the director, and that's when you got stuck in the elevator. And I'm going to keep bringing it up. So I hope that you just remember that moment every single time when you're thinking about all the city buildings that you have purview over, and I hope that you will also be able to, whether it be here in person or online, if you have to be in Kapolei, to come to our committee, and maybe we can highlight, as you mentioned, stormwater utility, stormwater, and we can talk about that further.
We welcome the opportunity in the future to simply educate the city in terms of the responsibility of stewardship, environmental stewardship, one being stormwater. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. We will now move on to agenda item number 7. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, Resolution 25-20. This resolution confirms the nomination of J. Roger Morton to serve as the Director of Transportation Services of the City and County of Honolulu. With us, we have the Director Designate, Director Morton.
Aloha, Councilmember Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Okimoto, Member Tupola. It is indeed an honor for myself to serve as your Director of Transportation Services. Transportation is my my avocation more than a job, really. I feel blessed because I don't see him here, but I know that that you have two people that have an avocation for transportation, myself and my deputy John Nauchi, who's have his 50th birthday today, and I wish him well too for that. This is also an anniversary for me. This is my 50th year in transportation. I started in 1974 working for the Department of Transportation Services. I didn't spend long at that point, but I'm back. uh, and I always like to start some of these discussions by looking at some of the things that we don't do first as a transportation agency. We are the multimodal agency for transportation for Honolulu, but we don't fill potholes. We don't resurface roads. We don't issue driver's licenses. We don't regulate taxis or ride share. We don't do traffic enforcement, and we don't really operate transit. We have our partners at OTS and our partners at Hitachi that operate our transit systems. But we do many things that are very important for the community. We have our traffic engineering division. We operate all the traffic signals. We regulate and oversee all the transits on Oahu, including the bus, the handy van, Skyline. We are responsible for parking policy and for implementing a lot of parking situations. We have our very important Complete Streets program that we do. We do a lot in bike facilities and a lot in traffic safety, which is probably the most important thing that we do. Over the last 4 years, I think we've been successful in amassing a large war chest of federal dollars. We have, at the current time, we have about $300 million in FTA funding and about $65 million in FHW, and to spend that funding for the benefit of the residents of the city and county. We have a lot of worthy projects that are ready to go. Our Alapono Bridge in Waikiki, Waikiki Mo'ili Ili, is a really important project for us. We have projects in transit. We have projects to improve our traffic signal systems throughout the island and replacing over 900. We have plans to try to plan out the renovation of our Pupakea Trail and other trails around the island. I'm going to be speaking tonight with a group from North Shore over what we can do on the North Shore side of the island. So we have a lot of things on our plate. Challenges that we have. We all have an approaching fiscal cliff for our transit systems. They're very costly. We've got to figure out a way that we can keep them sustainable. There's a lot of uncertainty about what our future funding will look like from Washington. So we're monitoring that as closely as we can. Those are the challenges that I see going forward. We do have a couple of things that we are going to be presenting to the council shortly. One of them would be an adjustment in bus fares, transit and Skyline fares. You've probably seen some of the press on it. Not big increases, just moderate, modest increases, just about in line with inflation, just to keep us sustainable for that. Another one on that one is we're going to approach the council with a request to take a look again at what activities are activities prohibited on our public transit systems. Unless we can keep our public transit systems secure, clean, safe, and good repair, people aren't going to ride our transit systems. And we've invested billions and billions of dollars into the transit system. So our challenge is going to be, now that we're operating, to keep them in a pristine condition, to keep them secure, and to keep them safe. And we'll be approaching the council with some suggestions on two extra tools that could help us. Again, it is my distinct honor to serve the public in this way. It will be the capstone of my career. and I'm happy to answer any questions or as to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Members, any questions? We have Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much, Director. Always impressive. Definitely with the federal funding, the way that you got it, there is this other department that's short 10 billion. So if you can just let them know kind of what the process looks like, because I think it's a little bit bigger of a gap. And so I definitely think that we are glad. I think with the Project Zero, or the one that you shared with us, one of the things I loved is that you stated that it's a living document, that you guys want to keep improving it. And it was so well written and so well articulated. And your main goal of making it was to garner federal funds, because you're like, if we look like we know what we're doing, we talked about it, we have data to match it, we're better qualified to receive these. So I know that I said it in the hearing, but I'll say it again. That's a very good way to go. I think that's actually how Hawaii Community Foundation does it as well. They have a clear policy statement on what they're trying to do, and then they get donors to give money towards what they're trying to get done. So I do think that, you know, with your department, you guys have a lot of good forward momentum. I do think that the looking and strategizing through Skyline is probably your biggest hurdle. Ridership, how can we actually make the stations places where there's things to go to at the stations? You know, that's bigger conversations, that's kind of heart slash DTS conversations. But I would say in your department, that's the main one that I think definitely needs some massaging. And it's a little hard, right? Because heart kind of brainchilds it, and then they hand you over whatever's done. But definitely for ridership and for you guys to be able to sustain it, I think there needs to be these conversations of how we're going to every year keep molding and adapting to try to make it more and more of something that people are interested in. You guys did great, you know, with the Pacific Arts Festival that we had and trying to promote it. So you guys are very, you know, strategic in that way. But I wonder too if there's bigger strategic points that we really have to consider. I mean, for me personally, the fact that it ends at the Croc Center and not at the mall, I know that's a big thing, but it's just it starts at a place where there's not a lot over there. So again, not all of it is your issue, but I think in your department, because other things are going really well, that's kind of one of the sticking points that I think, you know, I would like to hear from you on what you think we should do.
Well, for Skyline, I mean, one of the, you know, the number one priorities for us is to open Skyline second segment by the end of this year. And that will have tremendous benefits for Skyline and for the city. Number one, when you look at Skyline now, going from Croc Center to Aloha Stadium, or what used to be Aloha Stadium, there aren't a lot of jobs in the corridor. There's some, but there aren't a lot. But when we get, as we go forward, we're adding 22,000 new jobs at Pearl Harbor, with 6,000 alone at the shipyard. Very concentrated place of employment. When we move on to the airport, we're adding another 16,000 jobs of airport workers. And as we get into Kalihi to Middle Street, we're providing a great gateway back toward all these other things that are there, the airport, the jobs that are in Kapolei, in that, you know, going in reverse commute type of thing. So that should help our ridership a lot. The challenge that we're going to have to do is, how do we leverage this? How do we be smart and leverage this asset that we're putting in? How do we get our bus systems oriented? How do we market? How do we promote? It's hard to promote when you know, people don't take. Well, sometimes they do, but people don't usually take transit for the benefit of taking the transit. They want to get from A to B, from home to work to school to medical. And as we get our system moving more toward the central area where a lot of these activities take place, our ridership will go up. I'm confident that it will go up in that. But that's a challenge, and I'll accept that challenge from you. That how do we leverage this, and how do we make it as successful as we possibly can?
Yeah, agreed. You know, I kind of thought, especially with just those little connector pieces, because at Kamakana I actually have a hotel there now.
Right.
So getting people from that little hotel to the start of it, I mean, could we do like, you know, like that they have a Disneyland, the little monorail thing? Could we take the one from Pearl Ridge and put it over there? I just think that I'm kidding. I just I just think that small little baby connectors, because even where it starts in Kapolei isn't close enough to UH West Oahu than it needs to be. Like, get the little tram going. Anyways, good luck with all of that, Director. We love all your work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Tupola. And I have to say, it's awesome that Councilmember Tupola actually mentioned something about to another director. Oh shoot, I lost it. Sorry, I'll bring it up later. I'll bring it up later. But does anyone have any questions while I think? Okay, Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, good afternoon, good
Aloha.
morning. Designee Morton. I had just a couple of questions, and it kind of tags into what Councilmember Tupola was asking. I did want to ask about the ridership. I know that in the media there's been the talks about increasing both the bus and Skyline, and I have asked questions in the past. At what point can we see where we're not fully subsidizing? This may never happen with Skyline, I'm not sure. But what is that looking like for us? Because what hurts us, or what's challenging for me, is when I hear in the community that they're, especially where the communities where it doesn't touch us, where I live, Skyline doesn't reach Mililani or doesn't go past H2. So there are people who are frustrated, and then to hear that it's it's the amounts to manage and maintain the structure, the system is really high, and now we're talking about increasing ridership fares for both the bus and the rail. Could you talk about that a little bit, and what are we doing to address that?
Well, first, I mean, although Skyline doesn't necessarily touch your area, Mililani, those, we are planning to address all parts of Oahu, particularly the central part. That it's a natural bus feeder into Skyline, and that's what we will be. We'll be making some changes in our bus system that will benefit the central Oahu, coincident with the starting of our second segment. So we're looking to do that. Same thing for further north than that into the North Shore region. We're talking today to some folks that have put together a transportation action group from the community. We're going to try to do what we want to do things that are successful, but also that are things that our residents are in favor of in a general sense. You wanted me to speak a little bit about the fares. Yeah, I am advocating for some fare increases. We've had 3 public meetings so far. Frankly, there's been little testimony, and the testimony has been roughly 50-50, some in favor of increases, some not in favor. The not in favor sometimes are, I'm okay with fare increases, but not this one or not that one, but very, very little. We have another public meeting tomorrow in Kaneohe where we will, that'll be our 4th public meeting on discussing the fare increases. My own philosophy, having spent my adult career in transit, is that fare increases should be very modest and regular. Sometimes they are irregular and large, and that's a shock therapy, that's a sticker price issue if we do that. So I'm in favor of, my motto has always been that transit is a nickel and dime business. That it is small increases are more palatable, but my philosophy is that that people should pay. We've done our best to try to tailor our whole fare policy so that we do have a lot of safety nets for people that are vulnerable. We have special fares for seniors, for people with disabilities, for people with low incomes, for people with handivan accessibility, for our youth, and so that's one of the things that I've been strongly in favor of is trying to figure out a way to keep our transit sustainable with income coming in, but at the same time having these targeted fares that can take some of the bite out of fare increases to our most vulnerable people.
Thank you. Could you give me an idea of what you're looking at right now? I know that I don't remember what the media showed, but there was bus and the rail. Could you give us what your numbers are looking at?
Right, so we run an integrated system, so it is bus and rail. And what we are looking to is no increase in the sticker cash, one-time cash fare, which is $3 now. We propose to keep that at the same level. We're looking at an increase in our monthly passes of $10 a month. We're looking at an increase in our deeply discounted passes of $5 a year increase. And we haven't had an increase since 2022. So those are, well, we had a small one before, but it was a sort of a specialized tourist-oriented one that we changed. But for regular residents, 2022 was our last increase.
So you're saying that the one-time ridership is $3, that's going to stay, and the monthly will go from 10 to something else, or it's going to go to 10?
It's going to go from $80 to $90 a month.
80 to $90. And
the youth would go from $40 to $45 a month. We still would like to incentivize the State Department of Education to also expand their program. We are going to expand the program next year from DOE to extend it from high school to middle school.
okay, thank you. And I do appreciate you sharing. I actually like your motto as well, modest and regular. I think with everything that's coming before us with the sewer fees and then I think the water, a bunch of other things that we're having to increase or look into, that even if it seems tiny to the riders or to the residents, it may seem like just another thing being added on. So thank you for being mindful. I had a couple more questions. And this is going, I think it was our last full council meeting, maybe, when the streets in the front were adjusted to be bike lanes and then parking. And you even said you hadn't known, you weren't aware. I was shocked, and I'm not gonna lie, I called Deputy Director Designee one day because I was afraid. It's so different out there. What kind of communication can we get if you weren't even aware that that was happening? How are we to know, and what can we get out to the public? Because it is still a little scary just coming out of here. It's different. How are we getting this out to the public, the information?
Well, I mea culpa, that we should have gotten better information out about the change that was happening. It caught us off guard too. These were changes that were planned, frankly, in the last 3, 4, 5 years. And while the planning was all done, we did a lousy job of being aware that it was going to be executed by our contractor. And we'll do a better job the next time. I know I've had discussions with my staff that we dropped the ball on that. The fact that I didn't know, the fact that my staff didn't know is evidence that there was a problem.
Thank you. I think even in our districts, I've kind of been telling all of the department heads that if the more you can communicate with us specifically in our district, this wasn't one, but we use this area. However, when it is in our respective districts, it's really helpful to know what kinds of projects are happening so we can let our constituents know. And lastly, and we'll probably do this, we haven't had our one-on-one yet, but if you could kind of talk to us about the timelines now for when we request traffic studies. I know when I first got here about 2 years ago, it was a certain amount of time. Now it's more. And I did tell the residents that the more we request to put speed bumps everywhere, the more we're taxing you guys. And so that's why the time to do these road studies takes more. It has been extended, but could you maybe inform us of what's going on with that? What are we looking at when we put in requests for road studies in our districts?
It depends. I mean, in terms of traffic studies, we do traffic studies when traffic is normal. That means we really don't do it in the summer. We don't do it around holiday season because traffic is not average during those periods. So we're restricted a little bit in when we did it. We got backed up with COVID because the streets were empty. It didn't make any sense to go out and count how many cars were using the streets when they were empty. And now we're trying to catch up on that. Now, with respect to things like speed, like traffic control devices such as speed humps, stop signs, faded lines, those things, it depends. We can be very fast or we can be very slow. If our partners at State DOT have graciously allowed us to use some of their procured contracts that we can be very quick in responding to it. If we plan it ourselves and we do it, it's usually the more complicated projects, the ones that involve drainage, the ones that involve concrete rather than just asphalt. Those are more complicated and they take a multi-year time frame in order for those to be implemented. Asphalt is pretty easy most of the time, but there are many places where residents think that a speed hump that they read about them in the newspaper, they want them in their neighborhood, but there are places where they're not safe. On inclines of 6% or more, they're not safe. On windy roads, they're not appropriate. And in residential neighborhoods, they're noisy. We have lots of case studies where residents want to have them put in. Neighborhood board concurs. We put them in, and then the immediate adjacent neighbor, is all of a sudden shocked because they don't go to the neighborhood board meeting and they don't know that they're going in. Getting back to the other question too, and if you put them in, there are impacts that are beyond traffic safety. I'm a big proponent of them, but I just try to be realistic and understand that there are places where these things are just not appropriate. That's hard to tell the residents that are convinced in their own mind that this is what we need to do. State has had some where they have put them in and then they have, because of pressure of noise and things, they've actually taken them out. State's been much more aggressive at putting them in than the city has.
No, thank you, and I appreciate you being mindful and not just having like a knee-jerk reaction. I do understand that there's places where it's helpful, but I agree with you. I think there's cases where it can be more of a hindrance, especially when it comes to our first responders and safety in that way. But maybe in the future, because it would be helpful for me if any, and I've contacted you or your John in the past when I want to convey information, because I do get a lot of people stopping me and asking for these speed humps everywhere, and I want to be respectful, but also if I can maybe be better properly versed so that I can relay back to them how you guys look at areas and what determinants are decided on before these things are placed. We want to make sure that we're being practical as well as safe and taking care of our community concerns. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, I have my question. To go off of Councilmember Tupola's questions about having things to go around, and I think a lot of around the rail stations, but also kind of where our transit hubs are, is that we know we set up zoning for other businesses and residential areas to be developed around the rail stations, right? But we also know that people are often afraid to be the first one in there. So I know that I don't know if it can be done with future sponsorships, but if there's other allowances to have other vendors or other allowances of events at in and around the stations and or transit hubs to make it, like Councilmember Tupola said, places for people to want to go to, that would be really great. Us as a legislative body want to look at anything that is hindering the city from attaining that. So we want to be able to work on that. So first off, yeah, just wanted to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I've just returned from a trip to Japan and Singapore, where ground zero for retail and for activity is the station. Our cultural mindset in Hawaii is not there at this point. We would like to do what we can in order to have more urban activities around the stations, in the stations. Can we have 7-Elevens? Can we have foodie type events that can go on? Those also have the dual benefit of promoting security. People feel secure when there's other things going on in the area. I don't have a plan for that. I mean, the stations have been built. They don't really have spaces and facilities unless we get creative in a particular thing where we can do that. But certainly, I share the idea that that to make them human scale, we need to have more urban activity around the stations.
Fully agree, and that's super exciting. And I think that if we want to test it out, I have the most stations, and so you can definitely try to test it out in my district if you want to. Luckily, Halava is pretty active, so I know they're going to many different places. I know people from actually I see this guy on this bike from Nanakuli. Actually, I see him often. He works at Pearl Harbor, and I see him at the Halava station. So, and I'll see him on the weekend. I'm like, oh, why are you here on the weekend? Because I know he works at Pearl Harbor, right? And then so, but he's like, oh, because not what's it? What's it called swap meet. And so I was like, okay, swap meet being there, but then if they're gonna relocate or not gonna be there, I'm not sure. So we're gonna lose that activity there as well. So I think, and this is where I wanted to relay back to Councilmember Topola's comment yesterday in committee, where she mentioned that the city shouldn't own too much land or like all this land under their inventory. And I fully agree with that, especially if we can't maintain it. But what I fully agree is like but what I would agree on is if we have strategic parcels or land that are next to these transit hubs or stations that we then activate and allow for the foodie types of trucks or whatever it is, so that we can start it. We can be the first step forward. I don't know.
And obviously the TOD potential all along the rail line is huge, whether it is at the Waiava station, whether it's at our Ivalay station. There's just so much potential all along the line for TOD that would incorporate, mixed use development, retail, places where people would want to go.
Definitely, and I think once again with this committee, I think we can, with it being both planning as well as transportation, I think we're going to look heavily at how we can make that happen with your department and the city administration. And so that is something that is really exciting. I know that you've been in the transportation space for 50 years, as you mentioned. And I think with the public notification, not everyone is as well, not everyone pays attention to what is out there, what's new. And I definitely have received concerns or from even just turning in and where there were all the cones lined up for the lining of the, what's it called? The bike lane. And of course, I love the bike lanes. I love all of that. But I guess with your knowledge and experience, I think, how are you able to refresh your lens and be like, okay, how am I looking at this, experiencing it? Like, let's say you're a visitor. Like, I'm experiencing it as a visitor. Does it make sense that they'll know what these cones are for, that they can't drive down this way? So I don't know. How do you refresh your lens and kind of incorporate it to all your divisions so that everything that you do that impacts the rest of the island won't be as, I guess, impactful, like Councilmember Okimoto was saying?
The way it is now is temporary. It's not the final product. There will be delineators and there will be better signage there. As I say, it kind of got away from us, to be honest. It was planned actually even before I started or before the mayor started in his term. So it was a little bit of a shock to all of us. Whoa, did you see what happened last night? So again, my apologies for that. And
yeah, I think we can.
Every city is having similar. Not every city, but many cities that I go to are having similar issues. And the issue for me is making sure that we do find the right balance uh, in the transportation modes that we have, the right balance between bicycles, automobiles, skylines, and those are those are policy issues really, and they're not easy ones to resolve.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. And I think it's the going back to the public notice notification. I think I had a resolution in 21 or 22, and I know we had a pretty big discussion about that. And I was transportation chair back then about just giving public notification for X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I know you remember. And so I think whether it's a surprise or not, I think seeing that out there, being able to direct your team to have something further down, maybe by not Vineyard, South Baratania, to be like, hey, there's going to be like a sign that says, hey, not hey, but whatever, cones out on, I don't know, King for road work or something. Because people then were getting stuck and jammed up. And so I have to say, it was a lot of the state legislators that are telling me to tell you this. So I just wanted to relay that, and now they can see that I'm actually telling you this. So they said they were late to their hearings, is why they said that.
Message received. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Another thing is, well, I like that you are finding the balance. I hope that I can kind of be the other side where it's like we need to have like the people's. You said human scale balance, because it's the balance is still vehicles over people. So I think we need to tip it more to then create a balance, and I don't think we're even close to it yet, in my opinion. So just want to share that with you from my perspective. I don't, and I'm just one person, so just wanted to share that that's where I come from.
Well, I share that too. The question is, in a given corridor, and how can we best use that corridor? It's technical. It is socio economic. It is a lot of things, and the reality is that we're on a tight island here. We have narrow rights of way. We have lots of density. We have lots of congestion. Other places are more fortunate. They have more areas that they can deal with. And ours is a real challenge in trying to do it. Having said that, I'm proud of what we've done over the last 4 years in terms of our central area here, with our partners at DDC and at DFM. We have implemented a number of change streets, of complete streets that that you can now see the beginning of a comprehensive, cohesive network that 4 or 5 years ago we had sporadic things here and there. Now we're connecting them, and I think that's going to be good for going forward. Is that we're going to have a connected network rather than sporadic pieces here and there.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And one last thing, I just want to be able to make a comment that I know we have so many federal and state regulations when it comes to designing and even building and notifying these a lot of the things that we want to implement. Are we able to? Are you supportive, and are you already making efforts to just allow more and quick build projects so that we can just have people see / experience it, collect data and responses from that, and then see what works in the type of corridors? Because like what you have right now is like we're counting vehicles, we're counting bicyclists, we're counting pedestrians, we're counting, etc. So exactly, can we just quick build things and then collect data from that?
Yeah, we have a program that Complete Streets Group will be implementing, that over the next few years we're looking to have as many as 50 quick build projects.
Okay, maybe we can talk about that later. Okay, perfect. Great to
We'll
know.
talk offline about where they are and those
Yeah.
things. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really great to know. Okay, thank you. Thank you for prioritizing that. Okay, so members, any other questions before we move to testimony? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director. It's
Thank you
very
very
exciting.
much.
Okay.
Aloha.
So we have, we want to proceed with remote sorry. Remote testimony. We have Donald Sakamoto. Donald,
He's online.
please press, is he on Zoom? Zoom or phone? Donald, please please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, not mute. Okay, let me come back. We don't have any registered in-person testimony. Do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, now we're going back to Donald Sakamoto. Donald, for testimony. I think it's because of this. No, I think it's because the system's down. Okay, one last chance. Sorry, it's a public meeting and I don't want to prohibit the registered testifier from testifying. Okay, so Mr. Sakamoto, you are off of mute, but we are unable to hear you. Um, what am I allowed to do? What am I allowed to do with this situation? No, I think also because our system. Mr. Sakamoto, are you able to hear me? Is he writing in the chat? Is he? I'm going to give it another minute because I don't want to recess and I don't want to prolong the meeting either. Mr. Sakamoto, I'm so sorry. We are unable to hear you. I know you're off of mute though. Mr. Sakamoto, on the if there's a way for you to call in as opposed to Zoom, we would like to give you a few minutes while we. I don't want to recess though, Pat. Okay, so the testifier has logged off. I believe he may be trying to log back in. I am unsure if the testifier is watching online. Yeah, I have it here. Is the the sorry, the call for testimony is 1-253-215-8782. Once again, the phone number is 1-253-215-8782. Once you get to that, shucks, this is a long one. You will enter the ID 833-198-20417. Once again, after you call, you will enter the ID 833-198-20417. You will then be met with a passcode of 393879. 393-879. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Deputy Managing Director. It's either having to keep this meeting going or I'm having to recess and reboot, and I'm choosing to keep the meeting running. Once again, the number to call for oral testimony is 1253-215-8782. Then you would enter ID 833-198-20417, followed by the passcode 393879. Okay, so the testifier is logged back in. I was told to wait 5 minutes from the time I asked, so that was like 3 minutes ago, 4 minutes ago now, 4 minutes ago. We'll wait another minute. I don't want to recess. Okay, it's okay? Okay, sorry, Mr. Sakamoto. We know that we could hear you before. I know you were logged on, and I know that you're very active with engaging with our transportation agencies. So you could also contact our offices to provide more information or share your story, your testimony there. With that, there being no other testifiers, members, we are back in discussion. Well, I, for one, I'm sure I have just a little fraction of excitement and I don't know that A word you mentioned about transportation or transit as well. So I have the same feelings, even just a fraction of it. And I'm very excited that you are at the helm of the transportation department and with your team as well. I know that you operate under such strict regulations, and I wish that we could do so much more at such quicker rate. And yeah, I could say a lot more, but I just wanted to end that. And I look forward to next month when we get to approve you out to then be approved by the full council. Members, any other discussion? There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.